I do believe we are live. I do believe we are live. Right? We have audio too, right? Right? We do. Wicked. Time to put on some tunes. Here we go. Bum, bum. Bum, bum. Get over there. All right, there we go. Yeah, we're gonna be hopping into it very shortly. Bum, 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 bum. Just gonna ping the Discord. Actually, where's my OBS? Where'd my OBS go? There it is. All right, cool. I just love this song so much. Let me do one of these. Oh wait, hold on. No, stop freaking out. It's not that serious, I promise. There we go. Damn. Easy stuff. Yeah. What's good? What's up, Mason? How you doing? So far, so good, honestly. Very, very busy week for me. It's been a very busy week for me. Between, like, you know, work, life, making YouTube videos, which Plants vs. Zombies one is fully edited. That's uploaded, but not live yet, so that's gonna be coming out soon. That's good. Good, you're good. That's good. That's good. The red guy in the thumbnail is not you. Who is it? You're right, that's not me. We're gonna find out shortly. I mean, like, I can pull up the guy's name, right? Beat 'em ups, right? That's his YouTube channel. I don't know his actual name. I've seen like clips of this because we're gonna do a reaction stream, right? Because I can't sit down and play a game currently because I'm not gonna have time to do stuff with it, right? So I have to do a reaction stream, which is a little annoying. I don't hate doing reactions, right? Because I did reaction during the Chikorita stream, right? But this is actually a topic I think I can actually put a lot of input into, right? Like, why are Pokemon games so outdated, right? I think I can have a lot of input to this, so I think it's gonna be good reaction. And then there's gonna be something else after that as well. And depending on how time's looking, I might do some Pokemon Gamma Emerald, because last stream went terrible. It went terrible, not because of anything in particular, other than like the game just like glitching out and deleting our poor little Trico. I have to go in like 5:15ish. Oh, at like 5:15ish. Okay, cool. I mean, we're gonna be starting up in the next couple of minutes. And yeah, there's not really much else to do. We're gonna be starting soon. Actually, hold on. What did they? How do they respond to my bug report? Oh no, just the guy said. This guy said, "Yeah, happened to me too. Sad." Because like one of my most recent thoughts, is talking about the shiny Trico that got deleted, which is really funny. And that's doing pretty okay, I think, actually. Well, how's that one looking? I mean, 1.1K, it's not that crazy. Like, my reaction to the demo has done, I think, straight up just 10 times better. Just shy of 10 times better. It might hit 10 times better tonight, actually, which is really crazy. I mean, I guess it's not that crazy. People really like looking at trailers. For some reason. I don't know why y'all like trailers so much, but people who watch the channel really like the trailer reactions. For some reason. I don't even know what, I don't know. I didn't think I was that funny with it. I just did it because I was going to be streaming the game anyway, but it turns out people really like the trailers. But yeah. How long the song got? Got like 30 seconds. All right, cool. So we're going to be starting up next, like, 30 seconds. As you can hear the music slowly fade out. Actually, where's my live chat? Because I was reading through OBS, which isn't bad. But usually it's better to look through the live chat. There we go. Hell yeah. Also, if you're watching, please pop a like. I want likes. It makes me feel good. Shut up, phone. Okay. I was watching a Minecraft video earlier. Which, by the way, there's going to be a Minecraft video. Not video, but a Minecraft stream. That will probably be a video coming up eventually. This will be great. I have a really funny idea. I don't think it's been done before. If it has, I'll probably scrap it. But if it hasn't been done before, then it's going to be great. Let me click on this. And no more notifications forever. Yay! Okay. We're going to hop into this. Let me go ahead and just do one of these. And bam. All right, you are not here. There you go. All right. So peep this, right? Hold on, let me do one of these. No, I don't want you there. I want you here. Bam. All right, cool. Now, why are Pokemon games so outdated? That's a great question, except I have the answer. It is due to time constraints, major crunch time, and last but not least, employee size, or the amount of employees Game Freak has. That's it. You know, because like they have to produce a game, or at least back during the DS era, DS to 3DS, it was like a game would release like every like 1.5 years, sometimes up to 3 years, right? And that's not a long time. That's not a long time at all. But for like DS games, it's not that bad, right? Because everything's like small, everything's compact, file size wise, it's not that crazy, right? You know, Sun and Moon is like a wonder that even worked out. You know, with how like small that game is in comparison to like if you were thrown onto a console, right? And then boom, Switch stuff happens. You gotta make everything bigger, and they just don't like Game Freak just wasn't prepared for Switch stuff, right? They just weren't. But hopefully this goes into like some cool stuff because I don't imagine it's gonna be harking on Scarlet and Violet too much because in his thumbnail it's Legends of ZA, right? I imagine he's gonna be talking about stuff in the Legends of ZA trailer, which immediately I can think of. He's probably gonna be talking about the windowsills because I heard people talk about the windowsills looking like they're kind of like painted on, and I kind of want to see if he's going to talk about the wild zones. Yeah, there's not much else to it. We're going to get into this. It's going to be great. Let me turn the volume actually. And we're going to put this in 1.5 speed so that we get this through a little quick. You know, don't want to be here forever because with a Chikorita reaction, that like however long that video was, I like 1.5 sped that, and I have the reaction almost done. And right now it's looking at like 54-ish minutes in duration. I might get a little short if I can, but like if I cut out too much at that point, then it's not going to be the same. It's going to be worse. So like hopefully this isn't going to be as bad because I think it's about the same length. Actually, this might be a little longer. Well, no, whatever. I'm rambling. We need to start. I'm going to finish my Dr. Pepper. Bam. How to get the trickles. But also, we got to get extra gritty with it, right? Got to get extra gritty. Oh, wait. These things are actually kind of hard to open. Hold on. Ah! 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 That's water for y'all drinking at home, in case you didn't know by the brand. It's water. I thought it would be really funny. Be like, hey, yo, just throughout the entire video, whenever someone's like randomly watching or someone just coming to stream, I just happen to be drinking like a slightly more expensive water. It's like it's fine water. It was like 2 for 4 at my local grocery, which is nice. Usually I wouldn't go crazy over that water, which because it's water, but like I don't know, it feels refreshing, makes my bones feel good. All right, I'm rambling too much. Why are Pokemon games so outdated?
Pokemon games look like shit, and I want to know why. Cars,
Yeah.
cafes, stores, toys, plushies, apparel, movies, anime, home goods,
Oh wait, I saw the chat move. X, Y, and Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon. Though they were visually beautiful, but also feeling the most at the time incomplete mess. So that was just the nail that they struggle making games now. I think I mostly agree with that, right? Because most people's biggest gripe with X and Y, besides difficulty, because it's probably the easiest game in the series. Yeah, I'd say X and Y is the easiest game in the series. Is the models, specifically about Pokemon, right? Some models are great. Him on top, beautiful, right? Him on top does great in the new 3D, right? Then you have like Quagsire, right? Who's just kind of like sitting there, just kind of like a doofus, which kind of is in line with him, right? But like in other games, he's just kind of goofy, he's just a little goofball, right? And then you have I'm trying to remember who else usually comes to mind. Um, I just had him in my brain. I was just about Skarmory. There we go. Then Skarmory went from being like this kind of awkward bird that like had a lot of character and flair to it, right? To just kind of being like a little like like a fucking plane, right? And it's like I don't know, like that it kind of fits. Don't get me wrong, but like it just isn't as good, That's people's most gripes with X and Y, and also it was the first like quote unquote 3D Pokemon game, right? So they did just like most people give them like a lot of passes for that, right? Which I think is kind of fair. And then with like Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon, they are spectacularly good games. Visually speaking, aesthetically speaking, thematically speaking, they're very, very good games, right? It sucks Ultra Sun and Moon came out immediately after it, though. If Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon came out like 5 years later after Sun and Moon, it'd be regarded as one of the best Pokemon games, hands down. But a big thing with Sun and Moon, people's gripe with it, again, like, since it's also on the DS, everything's just kind of like jagged, if that makes sense. Like, there's black lines around everything, Um, if it's in its native resolution, right? Now we have like Citra emulators and everything, and people are able to upscale it, right? And like that's fine and all. But like, yeah, I feel like I'd rather just like have like the edges because it just feels like I'm actually playing the game. Exactly, agreed. Yeah, like because my biggest gripe with Scarlet Violet, right, is that there are times where it is very, very nice. The Pokemon models look incredible, right? But sometimes the environment's just kind of ugly, right? And I'm sure he's going to talk about the environment a little bit, but that's my biggest gripe from a visual perspective. And obviously, there's like the glitches and stuff, which was only from the 1.0 version, if I'm not mistaken. Because I have never seen the body stretch glitches. I have never seen those, right? Or for whenever I'm playing the game, right? I've only had like frame drops, which shouldn't happen. It's a AAA game, or whatever. I think it's AAA. They shouldn't have frame drops, and crashing happens, right? I've had one crash my entire time playing Scarlet Violet, and that was during the first, I want to say, first month. So the crash issue, I think, has been patched out. And then plus, there's the whole issue with like Kesasori Lake. It starts with a C, where you get Dondozo and Tatsugiri, where there's like the massive amounts of swaths of lag, right? Because they're spawning so many creatures all at once, And I think those are fair things to criticize, But I think whenever it came to like the quote unquote game breaking glitches or the body stretching or all that stuff that happened from the 1.0 versions, like so the version of the game you're not supposed to even play, I think is a bit. Yeah, I think that's just stupid, personally. Because it just like that's a version of the game you're not supposed to have. It's like getting mad at BDSP for the bad music for the 1.0 version that wasn't supposed to hit the public, right? So it's just like I don't know, it just seems kind of dumb, you know. But again, I'm rambling. We gotta get back to Pokemon. We're 10 seconds in. I'm rambling.
Snacks, food, glue sticks, shampoos, this thing. Game
Yeah!
have their grubby little hands in literally everything.
That's true. Like name something, there's Pokemon for it. I love Scarlet Violet. I really do because Pokemon, the game was a buggy, incomplete mess, making XY feel complete. IMO, and XY was literally a fourth of what it was supposed to be. That is true, but X and Y was also just like like they were just kind of trying stuff out, right? Like if X and Y was a 2D game, it would be way more complete, and that's 100% true. That's part of the reason why Dianthus kind of like baby easy, because they just kind of like had to like rush things, while they were able to throw in a bunch of trainers into the game, right? So the level curve was really nice because Diantha is the highest, well, technically second highest, but the highest leveled champion in the game, or at least as of actually, am I mistaken, or is it Leon now? I don't remember. Well, technically, if you include Kieran, you know, because he's a champion, right? I think he's technically the highest leveled. If you okay, so that's stupid, but you get the idea, right? There definitely was a bunch of plans. There was like the power plant thing. They were probably gonna have an event with Volcanion, you know, and they didn't implement a Deontay event in Oraz, but it wasn't really anything too crazy, you know. And I think their whole thing was like they were just trying stuff out, making new models, and they overestimated the amount of time they actually had, so they just end up rushing things out. And hopefully, what if they ever make an XY remake, we actually do get to visit some really cool stuff. If slash when it happens, or we have a bunch of cool stuff in Legends of ZA. But Scarlet and Violet are generally really good games. Like the only like again, the flaws are that's like really ugly and can be laggy and there's some buggy stuff, right? But as far as the actual bugs, like you don't really see many of them. Like a buddy of mine was like, I need to ask him. I might actually throw this in the video when this becomes like or throw this in the video after stream. But he was messing around with Scarlet and Violet. He was having some bugs he's never seen before, so I need to ask him about that actually. Uh, and he's a very smart tech guy, so he'll like actually be able to like understand and know what the fuck's happening. Um, I'm trying to think. I think there was something else I was going to say, Professor Bond. But I can't think of anything else actually. But yeah, like personally, I haven't had any game breaking bugs, frame drops, and that one crash that one time that wasn't on stream. That's about it. All right, back to the video.
And when I say Game Freak, yes, I mean Game Freak. Dating back to 1996, Blue and Red are the first instance of the existence of the entity that is Pokemon. And guess who created and owned it at the time? That's right, Game Freak. Or more accurately, Satoshi Tajiri and Ken Sugimori.
These guys are lit.
In 1998, 2 years later, Game Freak, Nintendo, and Creatures, the company that made the Pokemon trading card game, came together and co-founded the Pokemon Company. Since then, and to this day, each of those three companies own 33% of the franchise. That is Digimon. Sorry, Pokemon. Arguably
no one
one
knows
of the most
Digimon.
advantageous business transactions of all time, with Pokemon now being, say it with me, everybody, the world's largest franchise, about to top $100 billion in revenue.
Yeah, it's gonna break that 100 billion as soon as ZA drops, I think. I'm a little sad because of the Terra leak. I haven't seen anything for the leak, so don't spoil anything. Some stuff got cut. Oh, you're talking about for you're talking about for X and Y, duh. For Gen 10 and ZA. But that massive leak revealed so much of what was going to be. Yeah, there was like a whole like theory of people going to be doing something involving like space and everything, if I'm mistaken, which is really cool. I was about to make a video on that back in like 2019, right? Where there's like this crazy like X and Y theory. It's like, okay, we're supposed to go to space, you know? But like I ended up going against that because like this video. I was like, I was writing the intro for that back in like 2019. I was like, this is kind of lame. So I just played like Minecraft instead. But yeah, it's unfortunate, you know, because X and Y, you know, could have been a lot more, but if like we might like, there's no real point in like draping over like what could have been when the games are still fine, they're still decent, right? And we're about to have like ZA, you know, like if anything, it's like X and Y walked when like so the other games could run, kind of thing. You know, because I personally, X and Y was the baby game that got a bunch of players who used to play back into the games. They introduced Mega Evolution and they introduced Fairy type. Like it did what it needed to do, kind of thing, right? You know, obviously you could always want more from a game, and I think that's and I think that's reasonable. But X and Y did enough, in my opinion, for what it was, I guess.
That's almost double of the next highest franchise in Disney and exactly 50 NBA jams.
Yeah!
So I ask you, once again, and not for the last time, why do the games look like shit? They are the main thing.
Great question.
Pokemon. The cards, merch, and anime, they all draw inspiration from each new video game release.
My number one thing that I would talk to people about, because obviously Pokemon fans are always like, oh, hey, why does the game look like this? Or whatever, right? And my biggest thing is always time, right? Which you can always like figure things out, like how you can get more time or how you can speed up processes, right? But then is also number two, and this is the big one, is the manpower. They don't have a lot of employees in comparison to the size of their company, right? You know, because there will be like a Mario game, right? That has like 200 people working on it, right? 200, 300 people working on it, right? And Pokemon has about that many, or Game Freaks itself, I should say, has about that many employees, which I don't know if that includes just the people working on the games, or if that also includes like janitors and everything. I'm not sure on the specifics, right? But the point being, 300 employees for like a almost $100 billion franchise seems a little strange, right? You know, because that's a lot of money. Like that is fuck you money beyond any reasonable degree, right? like, I don't know. I feel like it just makes a ton of sense to say, oh, hey, why don't you guys have more employees to make the games better, right? Because, like, people are cool waiting longer for better games. I'm one of those guys. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, oh, hey, I'm cool with waiting for, like, instead of getting a new Pokemon game every year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, right? I'm down to wait 4 or 5, right? Because most of the assets for Pokemon, they kind of just port over, right? And they do, like, update the textures, which they did with, like, Legends ZA, like, stuff's more saturated in comparison to Scarlet and Violet. But, like, a good chunk of the stuff is just transferred, so it's a matter of just, like, building the game, you know? So it's not which Pokemon does have a lot of, Pokemon's able to basically skip a ton of steps because they're just able to port over so many models, you know? But yeah, like the moment they get more employees is gonna be the moment a Pokemon game gets Game of the Year. It's gonna be soon. Unironically, Pokemon could easily get Game of the Year if they just get a couple more employees.
The animes are animated beautifully. Even the
True.
spin-off underfunded animes like Pokemon Concierge, which has
I haven't seen that yet. I heard it's really good. I might watch that at some point. Like I heard it's wonderful and it looks quite nice.
been highly praised for its cheerful atmosphere and its visuals. And I should know, I've watched it twice and I cried both times. Even the Pokemon cards, some of them look so beautiful that people pick them and they put them in protective little tiny glass houses.
Yeah, that's his pet Giratina.
And it's funny because those same people, when you mention how bad the games look, will start throwing stones in those same tiny glass houses. So can we have...
No, yeah, like I think it's stupid to say, oh hey, this thing looks bad. I'm going to defend it because I really, really like it. I think that's dumb. You know, because you're allowed to criticize something you like. You know, you got to be able to criticize something you like. Because if anything, that can show if anything, that can show like more love for that thing. You know, to be able to criticize it properly. You know, like because there's one thing to just hate for no reason, right? Because there are people who just hate Pokemon franchises for no fucking reason, right? But then there's this people who will defend it no matter what. You know, I think just blindly defending like anything is just stupid. You know, you shouldn't just blindly defend stuff. You should be able to take criticism and or reasonably deflect the bullshit, right? Because there's a lot of bullshit, but there's also a lot of good criticisms. And the number one criticism is mostly the game's just kind of looking bad. There's no real reason for them to look bad, and some like the lag and some bugs, you know. But most of the bugs were patched out. But potato, I guess.
An honest conversation about why everything else Pokemon branded is of such high quality and production. But the
I'll be real, dog. Those Heinz, what they were like SpaghettiOs.
conversation
coming
about
up.
why everything else
Yeah, like those were not that good.
Pokemon branded is of
I remember those getting them. I remember they were not that good.
such high quality and production.
Or am I crazy? Or am I thinking of a different one? Was I around for that? I don't know. When did those come out? I'm gonna probably fact check. Fuck, can't speak. I'm gonna fact check myself in post.
But the video games are a laughing stock outside of the Pokemon fandom community. Yeah, pause. I'm gonna...
Which, by the way, is completely fair and rational take. You know, because like the game's looking like it's a like I'm stuttering a lot. It's like $100 billion franchise, right? That's a perfectly fair and reasonable to say. Why does it look bad? You know, but angling a camera to get like the kind of like, oh, I could see through the guy's face is kind of dumb, right? Because you can do that with a ton of games. You know, I can make walls like kind of vanish in Marvel Rivals. You know, so like what are we doing?
Stop you right there, buddy. This video is sponsored by Nixie, and if you can believe it, I've been looking at Switch accessories.
Also, we're going to let this play out because this reaction would not exist without this. I don't know if the whole thing will be in the final cut, but it is going to play, and at least in the final cut, there will be like
For
the
almost a
guy's
decade.
code and everything, and the link will be at the top of the description because this would not exist without this
And these
video.
joypads are easily some of the best third-party accessory for the Switch that I think I've ever seen. I was immediately blown away by the quality of all their products, both in the way they shipped them to me that had really nice packaging. They sent me pretty much their whole product range, including this GameCube-inspired keyboard. You can clearly tell
That's
this
lit.
company cares a lot about the way their buttons feel and sound across all their products. 22 different RGB lighting modes, and I found some user-created modes in the app. The keys are hot swappable, and this little dot matrix screen up here, you can program it so easily. I threw the U Joy-Cons from my logo on mine. Moving on from there, they also do a wireless controller. This thing feels like an Xbox Elite controller, but you can use it on the Switch and PC and Android and iOS. You know, sometimes
That's
like
lit.
button layouts can get confusing, like Xbox and Switch, they look different. Well, guess what? You pop off the faceplate, you can just move those suckers around wherever you want. So that thing is awesome. And then we can
Oh,
take a
yeah,
look
that's
at the
lit, yeah.
Hyperion 2 wireless joypads. They have such a nice ergonomic
You
design
can't call
that
them
makes it really
Joy-Cons.
comfortable
You have to call
to
them
hold. They have
Joypads.
Programmable back buttons, Hall effect sticks for zero drift. All of those clicks are so satisfying and addictive and crisp. I can't get enough of them. They have 6-axis gyro motion sensing. They also have removable faceplates. These RGB lights are so easy to change. This one, you just press one button and then you can scroll scroll along to change the colors. This
That's
is a
lit.
hell of a way to spruce up your Switch 1 if you plan to keep playing it. There'll be a link down below for
If you plan to keep playing it, like I'd like to imagine that they are going to release. Oh, that's a turbo button. Let's go. But I'd like to imagine they don't have the Switch 2 stuff out or I guess prepared yet. Because like the Switch 2 isn't even out yet, so that would make sense.
Nixie and all these products. Go check them out. Thank you, Nixie, for sponsoring, and thank you guys for supporting my
Yeah, I think I was just being dumb there.
sponsors when I have them. Okay. Yeah, you keep talking. What is it? Pokemon sucks, man. You
Wait,
guys
hold on.
just
What
keep
was the
trying to
code?
keep playing it. There'll be a link down below for Nixie and all these products.
Oh yeah, so that link will be in the description of the edited video. And actually, hold on. I'll let's see. Other Bitly links. Freaking Bitly links. That's a little annoying, but hey, there it is. So like, I guess you can type it in.
Go check them out. Thank you, Nixie, for sponsoring, and thank you guys for supporting my sponsors when I have them. Okay. Yeah, you keep talking. What is it? Pokemon sucks, man. This guy doesn't shut up. You know, I heard he skipped all the story in Arceus. Personally,
That's crazy. Don't skip all the Arceus is a great game. Why are you skipping story?
I'm excited for the new game. They brought back Tepig. Pokemon
They did
fans
bring a
will
Tepig.
give you 100 excuses when you bring this up about how as long as the games are fun, the visuals don't matter. Yeah, I mean,
To be fair, I 100% agree with that. I don't care. Like, visuals are a last step priority for me whenever it comes to enjoying a game, right? However, I think what's going to come up is you might just like argue the story is kind of meh, but Scarlet Violet story is fucking incredible. I don't say fucking incredible. It's not like peak cinema or anything, but as far as like a Pokemon game is concerned, it's unbelievably good.
that is inherently true. I mean, look at Witcher 3, the Switch version. That is and always has been Nintendo's own mentality. You know, as long as the game
I mean, like Nintendo doesn't really control Game Freak's like production, or Nintendo doesn't. There we go. I can't speak. Nintendo doesn't control Game Freak's creative process, right? They just have like licensing stuff. I mean, I there might be a time where Nintendo has. I'm just like being dumb. But I guess as a whole, this isn't like inherently false. Of like, oh yeah, Nintendo's saying is like fun first. Everything else will come later.
is fun. Doesn't matter what it looks like. But how long are we going to use that Nintendo expression to excuse poor game development? Pokemon Legends Z. Oh, don't you leave that comment.
Or the Game Freak are doing their bestest westest. And the game.
Well, I mean, like that's not an indie company, so it is a dumb defense. 100%. Like they're not an indie company.
It's not even out yet.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure that impression of you definitely prevented the comment you were about to leave. It's not just
Nope.
about...
Now I gotta dislike the video. I have to report for violence, right? I have to report for violence, and I have to leave the meanest comment ever that will never get blocked by YouTube and get my account banned.
ZNA. It's about Game Freak's approach to video game development since they made the switch to the Switch. So we have a lot to look at. And in the words of Ash Ketchum himself.
You can't undo what's already been done, but you can face up to it.
That's an actual quote. See, I did research. You didn't believe me.
You did
I gotta
research.
get ahead of this a little bit because I have talked about Pokemon graphics a bunch here on
Okay, I thought
this
shot
channel,
I'm
on my
crazy.
podcast, and whenever I bring it up, people often say the same things. And one of them is, he's not a true Pokemon fan. He skipped all the dialogue in Arceus, so you can't take his opinion seriously. I'm not sure how skipping this very bloated story correlates to my eyes functioning, but it seems worth it to try and get ahead of this, so I'm gonna let you
I mean, like enjoyment of the game, and you don't look at the story. Yeah, that does raise questions, right? Because that immediately would make people assume, right, that you're looking out for, or if you make that fuck can't speak, it makes you look like you're nitpicking, right? Well, obviously, game look bad, therefore it looked bad, right? Duh, that makes sense. No shit. But you do gotta keep in mind, like there is to fully understand the game and the enjoyment of the game, you have to read the story that's presented in the game. You know that's just logic.
You know now, I am actually a Pokemon fan. I'm not super hardcore.
You are?
I haven't made it my whole
What?
identity. I don't have a tattoo. I don't own a Lucario fursuit that I wear on weekends. Look, I wish I had both of those things. One of
What do you mean you don't have a full-size Lucario fursuit? Which, by the way, that would make you quite short. He's like 4'8"? Something short.
my first games was Red. Who could forget playing Gold as a kid? And so
I can forget playing Gold. That game's not that good.
many others. In fact, I played pretty much every mainline Pokemon game. Never played Black and White because it was just that age where I was falling out of Pokemon before I decided
Well, just get into it. It's a great game. Probably peak of the series.
to fall back in. And at this point now, I'm just waiting for a Black and White remake because everybody says it's the best one. The first time I went to
Yeah, it's best one. And plus, there's like emulation, and like Game Freak's chill about you emulating. By the way, I don't know if people didn't know that, but Game Freak is really cool with you emulating as long as you aren't like doing anything like I'm trying to remember what the term is, but as long as you aren't like distributing the stuff for free or whatever, or you're paying, or you get, or not for free. If you're distributing the stuff for money, right? So if you're dumping your file and charging people like $10 for the file, that's super illegal. You can't do that, right? But whenever it comes to just like dumping your cartridge, or whenever it comes to getting the game, like that's not illegal. Yeah, the emulation not only is not illegal, Game Freak's pretty cool with you emulating because their games exist. They exist still, right? They're also protected under law. I'm trying to remember what the law and act is. But since they aren't being sold by Nintendo themselves or Game Freak themselves, you're allowed to still have access to them. That's how old games work, right? When it comes to emulating, you can emulate old games as long as the company themselves are not producing any more copies or selling them, right? So if Game Freak tomorrow was like, okay, we're going to sell Pokemon Black and White for the Switch 2, right? And it's just a port for the Switch 2, then you can still do the DS version, right? Because it's still the DS version, right? But you couldn't do that for the Switch 2 version, if that makes sense. I think I explained that properly.
To Japan, half the stuff I brought back was Pokemon merchandise.
Yeah.
I even made sure to get a reservation at the Pokemon Cafe, and let me tell you, when Chef Pikachu came waddling out to ask me if I liked the meal he cooked, I almost wept like a baby. It was so wholesome. What I'm trying to say is I do love Pokemon, but if you were to put a gun in my head and ask me to name a single character in any Pokemon game outside of Professor Oak and my mom, you may as well pull the trigger. You think what I was...
I mean, it's not that hard to remember Giovanni. Like, I don't know. I think you're just not paying attention. You know, like, because there is more to a game, especially story game, than just the mechanics and the gameplay, right? There's a reason why there's dialogue. It's for you to read it.
A kid playing Red for the first time, I gave 2 squirts a piss about the story. No, I was...
You might not care that much about the story, right? Because to be fair, when it comes to Pokemon stories, you appreciate more as you get older, which, like, that's what I found out. But you don't remember Giovanni, like the big old dastardly villain of the story? Giovanni? He was in the anime.
Too busy gambling on slots for a Polygon and riding up and down this one shoreline because I wanted 100 Master Balls. Hell, while I was scripting this video, Kim sent me a text saying she just woke up from a nap dreaming about an old Pokemon toy she had where the Mewtwo had tits. We're locked in on Pokemon. Why does it have tits? I'm making this video...
I mean, I don't know. I don't think those connect together at all. I don't know. Seems kind of strange.
Because I do care. Because 25 million people is a lot of people to buy a video game.
That's
true.
true.
More people bought games like Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing. And Zelda isn't even in that Wikipedia list of top grossing franchises.
Yeah, because a big chunk of Pokemon's like profit margin comes from merchandise or just general merchandise. So, you know, because the TCG counts as in that whole thing as well. And the TCG is fucking huge. It is big. And I think it also includes Pokemon Go. It might include Pokemon Go. If it doesn't include Pokemon Go, it'd be crazy. But Pokemon Go is also still pretty large. Like there's a lot of people still play Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go is so big that it has its own like event for competitive at like Worlds and everything, right? Like it's still big. I think Unite also has that. I think Pokemon Unite has that, even though it's not nearly as large as the other franchises. Or not franchises, the other games, right? I might be crazy. I might be misremembering about Unite. I need water. Hold on. But this is true though. They did sell more. They're cool games. Like I'm not a huge fan of Legend of Zelda. Didn't play. I already forgot the fucking. Am I crazy? Animal Crossing, dude. I'm losing it today. I'm just losing it. I didn't play those games, right? They're not my cup of tea, right? I do other stuff, right? I play other games. I was busy playing Overwatch. And fuck. I might be coming down with something. I'm being stupid today. And I completely lost my train of thought now. I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Which means, yes, it's below NBA Jam. And
it's below NBA Jam! No!
Remember when Breath of the Wild came out and no one would shut up about it? How it was a new, breathtaithing, innovative, jaw-dropping, inspiring new
people like
video
the
game?
game, yeah.
Don't we want that from something like Pokemon?
100%.
I feel like these games always get a pass because they manage to sell so much, but it should be higher, shouldn't it?
It should 100% be higher. 1 billion copies. 1 billion copies.
We as fans, do we not want the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon? Or are we...
I don't know if you want the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon, right? Because a big gripe that people have from... Like, and a buddy of mine who also told me this too. A big gripe that people have is the swaths of emptiness in the Pokemon game, right? Which is not a fair criticism at all, because it's an open world game, right? And also, not to mention, have you been outside? Because if you go outside, you walk in the woods, right? There might be a ton of bugs like around that you don't see. You're not running into an animal every 2 steps. You just aren't. You aren't seeing the birds attacking you every 2 steps. It just isn't happening.
Be content with the Okay, this guy's making some incredible points, and he has me completely sold. But I actually just watched his last podcast episode where he said some of this stuff in the episode. One of the top comments was, the games only make up 10% of Pokemon's...
Which, by the way, is not a defense. It just isn't a defense.
Total revenue, which... Fan of the podcast, and I love him. I love that they left this comment, because it also allowed me to get ahead of this one, because what the piss? 10% of $100 billion, by the way, is still around 10 to 15 billion.
Which, by the way, this is true. Like, it is only 10%, right? Because people only buy a game once, right? But people can keep buying merchandise, right? Like, while you do only buy a shirt once, right? Unless you, like, destroy the shirt, you know? You could buy more than one shirt. You can buy plushies. Like, I got some stuff over there. I got actually, I can't show that one off. That's gonna be for a video. But I got fucking Pikachu and Eevee Funko Pops, which you can't see right now. You know, I got fucking Eevee model that I built on stream, right? I got a bunch of Victini stuff up there, you know? I got the Magikarp from the Magikarp speedrun. That was pretty fucking cool. I got Pokemon cards. I got shiny Espeon plush. You know, it's like, you can just keep buying shit.
$10 just for the video games, which is a whole Grand Theft Auto franchise. And I would just like to remind you, again, something I've already said, the merch, the anime, the new cards, all the new merch, those come from the video games. So if the video games currently are only making 10% of the revenue, imagine if we made the video games, good. That would then trickle down to all the new merch, plushies, and all of that, and boost those revenue and sales even more. I guess I just don't understand the argument that the Pokemon Company makes too much money to try or bother with the video games anymore. When the video...
No, yeah, it's not an argument. It's really dumb. It makes no sense. Right? Because you would think you would get more people to buy the stuff if you make the big, or like the most common selling point, right? To get people into the franchise would be to just make the games better. That's 100% true, right? But also, like, if it's going to be nitpicky with like a few kind of bullshit bugs or glitches, it's like, you know, I'm not too bothered about like falling infinitely on that truck. You know, because like you can get out of it. You know, you aren't like soft locked. Because, like, usually the game's just like, oh, something's wrong, let's fix this, you know?
Video games are still making more money than 99% of the rest of the gaming industry.
True.
All right, anyway, back to this chump.
Obviously, what I mean by that is, like, the bugs and glitches should be minimized, right? They should virtually not exist, if at all, right? They just shouldn't, right? And I'm trying to put this in a way that doesn't make me sound like a fucking idiot. As we just like sit in silence, but in a way that makes sense. What I just say? I said, oh, obviously the bugs glitches should not like exist, right? It should be minimized, if not like made zero, right? But of course, like as soon as the game releases, people are gonna find the bugs and glitches. You know, same thing happened with Gamma Emerald. You know, like just not like the stream from a few days ago, most recent short on the channel. Which by the time this video comes out, it's not gonna be the most recent short. But people were running into a bunch of glitches, and my shiny Trico got deleted. You know, it's like, of course we're gonna find bugs and glitches. Like that's just how it goes, and that mostly goes into Game Freak just not having enough manpower. What's terrifying is what Nintendo is doing now with licensing and pricing points. The power situation worries me with the vague things they bought a patent for. That's true. I feel that because like whenever it comes to pricing and licensing, right? We'll actually go down the points there, right? Licensing, right? So Nintendo, whenever it comes to Pokemon, right? Nintendo has licensing and distribution rights to. I believe they have distribution rights for like games and such, right? That's why they own a third of the company, is because it's like, okay, here's where your game lives, therefore you get a third of your shit, right? Which, by the way, crazy deal. Nintendo struck gold with that deal. That is an incredible deal, right? That's like insane. That's like if YouTube took 30% of creators. No, actually, no. It'd be closer to like 50% of like creator revenue, right? Which they don't. They don't take up 50%. But if they took like 50%, right? Because Creatures still has to create stuff, right? So it makes sense why Creatures gets like a huge chunk of the pie. But Nintendo doesn't create everything. They do like control like the legal stuff, right? But like it's basically the equivalent of YouTube taking 50% of ad revenue, which they don't take. It's more like 10 or 20%, and it's like 30% of like super chats and everything. So it's like, which in some people's opinion might be a bit too much, right? Because people were freaking about Twitch doing like 50%. Like Twitch takes 50% of your revenue, right? That's crazy. You know, YouTube does 30%. But like that's effectively what Nintendo's doing here, right? But whenever it comes to licensing, people's biggest gripe was about like them talking about like breaking consoles and everything because you don't technically own the console or some bullshit, which is not true. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. All of the TOS has that. That's not an argument. People are freaking out because it's like cool, hip and cool cool, hip, and cool. Yeah, cool, hip, and cool to hate on a Nintendo because $80 game or whatever, right? Which, by the way, hate on an $80 game all you want, but like, let's hate for a reason. Let's not be fucking dumb, right? And then whenever it comes to the price points, act fair and practical, by the way, or fair and practical to hate the price points, because $60 games is a bit much for some people. But I'm sorry for interrupting the stream with a random rant. No, you're fine, dog. But whenever it comes to pricing of Nintendo games, right? Like, I think depending upon the value that is given, you can find a way to make the price point of $80 and $70 work. But most games and most companies cannot deliver that, right? Now, whenever it comes to Mario Kart, because Mario Kart's gonna be like $80 or something, right? It very well could be an $80 game. I don't know. I don't have the game yet, right? So I could not tell you personally. But I don't know if I would drop $80 for a Mario Kart game like a few years ago. You know, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, if that dropped to $80, I would not have bought that, right? And if there's a Pokemon game that drops for 70, right? They better give me some cool shit, you know? Like I better get some wicked cool stuff. Like I need there to be a reason for the game to be that much, you know? Because people, because like I should say some buddies of mine. I keep bringing down buddies of mine, but one of them was like, "Oh, how much do you think the next Pokemon game is going to be?" And one of them was like, "Oh, it's going to be $70, right? Because Nintendo's main pricing point for the Switch 2 has been 70, so Game Freak will probably also just make it $70, right?" And so then I was like, "I'm aiming for 60. I want it to be 60, but it's probably going to be 70," which is probably true. And I think that's fair and practical to be like, okay, what are we doing here, right? Because stuff's already expensive, right? Now, luckily, game pricing and console pricing won't be affected by the tariffs, right? Because they're just going to eat the costs on that, but they're going to get the money back from other things, right? And plus, whenever it comes to like digital downloads, I don't know if that like affects or is affected by tariffs. I'm not sure how that works. The big thing is like was the tariffs in the United States, which ultimately would end up affecting everyone else, right? Because the United Kingdom, I don't think has tariffs set on Nintendo products or Japanese products in general. I mean, but they still had like price increases. Same thing with Canada, you know. So like, what the fuck? It is very greedy, right? Nintendo is still a company, it's still a corporation. They're still designed to make money and to make as much money as possible. But that doesn't excuse the sudden like influx of pricing bullshit. And then with Power World, so I can't feel bad about doing certain things with Power World, right? Like if they were like going strictly after art stuff, I'd be like, yeah, go fucking get them, because they clearly stole. I shouldn't say stole. They clearly copied designs, right? Boltmane was fucking Luxray, you know. It's like what are we doing here, right? And there was a bunch of stuff like I made a video about Power World like however long ago that was. Some points were good, some points were bad, yada. I might do a revisit video because I think it'd be cool to revisit Power World and be like, okay, is this game like still kind of meh? Because I didn't care for it, but you know, you can like the game all you want, but if they're going after Power from an artistic standpoint, I'd be all for it, right? Now going after the flying on creatures or throwing out the mons from the balls, I think is kind of dumb. I think that stuff's dumb. From an artistic standpoint, yeah, like if they stole your designs, hit them with the book, right? But whenever it comes to the other stuff, I think it's stupid. You know, it just doesn't make sense. What I don't like is that they are turning Power into an example. They patented the basic definition of monsters as creature collecting and catching mechanics. That's true. I also think that's dumb. Yeah, I don't think that's right. You know, like I like don't get me wrong. I don't like Power World. I don't hate Power World either. But as far as the game's concerned, I think Power World is a fine-ish game. I don't care for it personally, but I can see why people like it. But from a design standpoint, they should have definitely been hit way harder than I think they legally speaking were allowed to get hit, which I don't think was at all, because they clearly stole Pokemon designs or they clearly copied Pokemon designs. That's just definitive, right? And if people who disagree with that are either blind or stupid, that's the only way to defend that is if you're blind or stupid defending those designs. But throwing out a creature, like just going, yeah, creature go. Like I don't think should be like you could argue that could be patentable, but at the same time, why would it be patentable? That's like Nintendo like fucking patenting gliding from Legend of Zelda. That just seems kind of stupid, you know. I think it's dumb. Also, with catching, same thing. Same thing with throwing the creature out. Same thing with riding the creature. I think that's all stupid because I think their big thing was like they took out creature riding, you know, or at least one never came to flying. I'm trying to remember which one they did. Yeah, I think that whole thing's utterly fucking dumb. Because like a big thing with like Nintendo's issues is that big boy company wants to make big boy money, right? and we're going to do it as much as possible. We're going to squash out the competition as much as possible. You know, like I wouldn't be surprised at some point they're like, okay, what if we made Splatoon like an actual teen-rated game? Can we sue Black Ops? You know, I just don't think it's gonna happen. Or artistic standpoint, I get it. Actual infringement, I get it, but stopping others from making creature collecting games using similar mechanics is absurd. 100%. That's 100% correct. They should not be doing them from a mechanical standpoint. I think that's dumb. Like, sue them for Bolt Main. You know, don't sue them for riding a Pokemon or riding a PAL. I think that's fucking dumb. All right, back to the thing.
Let me get to the point. I know Pokemon fans hate when other Pokemon fans complain about how the Pokemon games look. And if you try complaining this time around about how Pokemon ZA look, they'll say, but it looks so much better.
Which, by the way, is true. The ZA looks so much better than Scarlet Violet.
Than Scarlet and Violet. And well, yeah, but that's a really low bar. And Game Freak...
Okay, this isn't a... Okay. This is not the argument you think it is. All right. Now, I agree with him for the most part. However, this is not the argument that you think it is, because this is a bug/glitch, right? You falling through the world, right? Like, make fun of him for this, sure, but this isn't the same thing. Like, like, this show an example of, like, hell, do the stretching glitch. I think that would make more sense, right? Because that's a visual bug/glitch. This isn't visual. Your model's actually falling down. Like, this isn't... The game looks better from a visual standpoint. This isn't a visual.
Other ones that set that bar. This game isn't anywhere near the industry standard and looks worse than anything else Nintendo is doing, which is already being scrutinized for being behind the times. Saying that this is better than the previous amounts of terrible is like going to your job every day and just intentionally being the worst you could be, just messing everything up, the worst employee this company has, but then like a year later you actually start trying and you do a little bit better and expect to be praised for being slightly less shit. You could...
But that's also just how that works. Spoiler, right? Depending upon your job, if you're just doing the bare minimum and occasionally do like a little more, you get hella praised, right? That's how that's how people get like raises and promotions who are genuinely incompetent. It's because they know how to game the system of work. That is all that is. Like that, which that's true. Like I understand his perspective. Like, okay, this thing looks bad, right? Why are you getting praised for doing better now? But at the same time, should we just like say, oh hey, we demand it to be 4K 240 and ultra realistic, you know? Like I understand the perspective, be like, okay, this isn't as good as the other stuff. You know, why are they getting praised? I mean, we like, should we shit on them all the time? You know, like we got to be fair here, right? Like I do 100% agree. Oh hey, billion-dollar franchise, right? Things should be better, 100%, right? But like at some point, we have to say, okay, do I like these changes? Yes. Good job. I like the changes. You know, we're going in the right direction.
Pick just about any first-party Nintendo game and compare it to ZA, even the soon-to-be re-released Wii U game, Xenoblade X. And it would be clear that this is not a Switch hardware issue, but an issue of a developer who is struggling to create games post the 3DS. So
no, yeah, and I think I agree with that for the most part.
let's not do that. Let's not compare it to those other Nintendo games. Let's do what Pokemon fans like to do, and only compare it to Pokemon's own games. A nice...
Which, by the way, I don't think makes a ton of sense, right? I'm going to compare the new game to the old game, right? But with Scarlet and Violet looking the way it did, right? With like some stuff looking kind of grimy, some stuff looking kind of like washed out, some stuff not being saturated, you know, some stuff like being glitchy or whatever, right? I think it's fair in that regard, right? But comparing, say, ZA to Pokemon Legends, I think is dumb because they're so far apart, you know? If that makes sense? And that's also just the next iteration, right? But the reason why people bring Scarlet and Violet up is because they were just so blah, visually speaking and mechanically speaking, whenever it comes to like some bugs and glitches.
Nice little echo chamber for us to play around in, see how our voice sounds. Hello? Hello? We saw in Scarlet and Violet that Game Freak struggles to create competent game worlds that aren't full of glitches, bugs, and low-resolution textures, terrible frame rates, and assets
I mean, like, wait.
stuck together with spaghetti and crazy glue. You just blink at this game wrong and you'll be falling through the floor. But I think
Okay, I thought he was gonna talk about like something looking kind of gross, like on a wall or something. Because I know like some of the like some of these wall textures are just like copy and pasted a bunch, right? Like, I mean, this is brick, so like, what do you fucking expect? If it's like a side of a mountain, right? Like, as you can see, the side of the mountain over there is basically just the same texture over and over again, right? But like, I don't know, I personally don't care about the same texture of a fucking like side of a mountain. I'm not gonna look at most of the time.
The biggest offender here is that resolution. At the
Yeah.
time, fans said, well, at least it looks better than Sword and Shield.
Mostly people brought up the tree. Sword and Shield actually doesn't look that bad. People hate on Sword and Shield way too much. Honestly, people overreact to Sword and Shield way too much. It's like, I'm mad about Dexit, where they just like removed a bunch of Pokemon from the Pokedex, right? And they, to be fair, I don't Game Freak for this. They were like, oh hey, we want to remove file size so we can actually make moves really cool, which they did. But double kick was just like a stamp. You know, they said double kick. You know, it's like, which I think is fair. Be like, what are we doing here, right? Even though Pyro Ball, sick ass animation, by the way. But yeah, Sword and Shield is like significantly overhated. But also, it makes sense to compare the new game to the previous game because it's like, oh hey, this is neat. There's like development happening. You know, like most people aren't. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard the defense of like, oh, it looks better than Sword and Shield, therefore it looks better. I mean, technically speaking, that's correct, but like, that's not really the defense that's happening.
However, comparing Scarlet and Violet to the Pokemon ZA trailer, the new game does look a lot better.
Yeah.
At first glance. Now, I want to say, to Game Freak's credit, looking back at their other Pokemon reveal trailers, all these trailers seem to be rendered within the game. They hide absolutely nothing about the way that their games look and play. So that gives us a very good, trustworthy bar that Pokemon Z and A is an in-game rendered trailer running on the hardware. And if this is true, I will say they've done a fantastic job at fixing resolutions and draw distances. All those jagged edges are completely gone. And I think that's why people look at these two images and think that this new one is so much better. But how...
I mean, I'm gonna be real. The new one is so much better. Like Scarlet and Violet are pretty ugly in comparison to the Legends of ZA. That is just definitive. Usually when asked what you hate about modern games, you add, don't talk to me about the tree. That's most of the argument. Honestly, that's true. People hate on that tree. They're like, oh, hey, Sword and Shield is a bad game. Look at this tree. Which, by the way, you could hate on the tree. You'd be like, that tree should not have looked bad. I think that's a fair and reasonable thing to say. However, what, Sword and Shield came out when? Like, what year was Sword and Shield released? Pokemon Sword release date. 2019. All right, that was 6 years ago. My baby brother was 1 year old, and he is now 5. Like, what are we doing? It's like, I don't know. We got to make things make sense, right? It's like, I think it's fair to be like, okay, this tree is ugly. But can we kind of get over it? You know, like throw it on your list of things you don't like about Sword and Shield, and we'll move on, I guess. Like we're on to the next thing. You know, let's move on.
How did they do that? I think it's pretty clear if you really look at this, specifically the buildings, a way they managed to...
No, yeah, like these are like basically painted on, right? And I think that's a fair thing to bring up. But like, I don't know, like I don't care that much about there being... Like, I'd rather be, like, judge it out a little bit, if that makes sense. Like, I'd like there to be, like, a little bump for the windowsill. I think that would just make sense. But, like, this doesn't matter that much to me personally, you know? I mean, because in Scarlet Violet, like, it kind of made sense why certain buildings are done a certain way, because you can climb up, like, everything with Miraidon or Koraidon, right? But this, I don't think it's going to happen that much. Exactly, but if you still stuck on the tree, really... Like, yeah, exactly. Like, what, we're still stuck on the tree? You know, like I'm cool with you being like, you know, tree ugly, and we're making memes and stuff, but like I don't know, we got to move on at some point, man.
Bring down those jagged edges is by just not having anything that would create a jagged edge. They've flattened out.
Yeah, this whole thing's flattened out. Yeah, as you can see, flat. It is painted on, which this could change, right? It could change extremely, but like this should be judged out. I think this is a fair criticism for the most part, but also kind of nitpicky. Like, it's not that big of a deal to me personally, but I can understand where he's coming from.
Almost every texture and model, specifically all...
In which also, by the way, I wonder how, like, I don't know if this guy talks about, like, movies and TV shows and such, right? Because, like, if he does talk about, like, say, animation and stuff, you would not believe the amount of corners cut in animation to make shit work. Straight up, you would not believe it. Like people used to hate on Frozen, right? Going back in however many years ago Frozen was. So Elsa is doing the song "Let It Go," right? And so she has a braid, right? And so it like goes through her shoulder at one point to basically, I think, be behind her, right? If I'm not mistaken, I don't remember the exact thing on top of my head, but regardless, right? So she has it. So rather than flipping the hair over and having that whole thing animated, it goes through her shoulder, right? And people are like, wow, that's really bad animation. Why would you let that happen? But in reality, that makes a ton of sense because when you look at it the first time, or hell, even on a rewatch, you have to be looking for that thing to see the hair go through the shoulder, right? That's not an animation like flaw. That is them being smart with their animation because if they had to animate the hair going like that, as opposed to just going like that, if that makes sense, hopefully I showed that well enough. That would just take longer, right? And animation companies have deadlines to hit because if they don't hit those deadlines, obviously they can't release the movie, they can't pay people, yada yada, all this bullshit. And so they're being painted on like walls, right? For the windows doesn't matter that much to me because like this is just them kind of being like if they don't intend on you climbing up the building or being on like obviously you're gonna be on top of the building because they did that in the trailers, right? But if you're not supposed to like climb next to the windows, similar to you would in Scarlet and Violet, why would they put it there? If that makes sense, right? Like personally, I think it would look better if they were jutted out like an actual model, but them being painted on is like fine. It's like I don't know, it's kind of nitpicky. But I do understand the perspective. If that makes sense. I don't know. I might be going a little too hard on that point.
All these very similar looking buildings throughout the city. In all three of the other Pokemon games on the Switch, Game Freak designed the buildings with intent and purpose. The architecture.
I mean, yeah, for the most part, I think it's true.
Designs of the buildings, they had depth. They had balconies, awnings, brick, windowsills, glass textures, concaves. You know, like intentional designs, man. Scarlet and Violet, for example, was set in Spain, and they clearly took those buildings as
Well, specifically the Iberian Peninsula, but yeah.
inspiration and went to work sculpting them. And they would look beautiful if you could see them through the jank. But you know, at least the thought was there. Here, almost every building.
No, yeah, because it does seem like just painted on, right? And I do think it's a fair criticism. But like, if they need to make the game better, right? And this is the thing you're pointing at, I don't know. Like, I feel like there needs to be a better point, you know, which this could just be the baby point that leads to the bigger point, right? And for all we know, these could be fixed later on, but I don't know. Like, Pokemon games, for the most part, look close to the same as the trailers do.
Has the same window, just Control-C and Control-V all over it.
Yeah, I don't care that much about that. I'm keeping it a buck. And I don't think most people care about that either. Because if you go to, like, an apartment, right? All the windows look the same. If you go to an apartment complex, all the windows look the same. My window is the same as my neighbor's window, right? Because why would they be crazy different? Like, let's keep it a buck. Let's just keep it a straight up buck. Why would they look different?
It's honestly giving Lego. I mean, they're just rectangles with stickers stuck to the front. It's also the same tactic they did use in Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah, okay, so I did bring this up earlier. I don't care about this. Most people do not care about this. Like, they copied and pasted the whole texture. Like, would it look better if it was a different texture? Sure. But I just don't care about this.
For the environments, and I broke this down in my review of that game. They took one small section of texture and just copy-pasted it everywhere.
I mean, yeah, like, I don't think most people even care about this. Like, I think it's, like, a fair criticism, but at the same time, most people just don't care. Like, I think even the average, like, game modeler, right, who makes 3D models for games, or, like, do the environments and everything, I don't think they would care personally. And they probably do this in other games, too. Like, as far as, like, 3D modeling is concerned. Like, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is a very common occurrence in most games. Like, I'm gonna keep it a buck. You mean to tell me, like, every, like, I don't know, like, GTA 6 is coming out in, like, what, in a year? You mean to tell me every single texture is, like, individually different? Which, hey, it could be. Like, they have, like, animations for the liquid. But, like, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I don't think the road is having a different fucking, like, segment for every, like, square inch. Like, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some copy and pasting at some point.
Hoping you wouldn't look at it for 2 seconds and accidentally notice. Incredibly lazy game development and complete.
No, it's not. Like, you have to focus on other things, which, like, to be fair, right? I think if the games ran better, and if there wasn't, like, the frame drops, I don't think this criticism would be brought up at all. I'm just keeping it a stack. It just wouldn't. But, like, I don't know, I just feel like it's a mute point.
Completely voids all personality and life from a city that's based on a city that is so filled with personality and life. Just like some people.
I mean, like, yeah, criticizing the buildings, I think is fair. Like, I think that's fair. But why are we talking about the mountainside? Like, is it, like, an example of, like, just showing, like, repetitiveness, I guess? Where it's like, oh, hey, they've done this and they've done this, therefore it proves that they were being lazy in both games, I suppose, maybe? But, like, I mean, the buildings are kind of square. They're very rectangular. I see where he's coming from.
Thinking that this is Tokyo Tower, it's actually the Eiffel Tower. And this city bears resemblance to the city of...
What?
Despite some people thinking that this is Tokyo Tower, it's actually the Eiffel Tower.
Who thinks that's Tokyo Tower? I've never met a single person say that's Tokyo Tower. Am I crazy? I might be crazy, but like I've never met a single person say, "Oh, look at that. That's Tokyo Tower." Everyone I've ever talked to said it's supposed to be the Eiffel Tower. I don't know. I feel like I'm sure there's someone who thought it was Tokyo Tower. I'm not trashing on this guy. I'm sure there's someone who thought it was Tokyo Tower, right? But seeing as how the thing like Kalos is based off France specifically, right? The giant tower in the middle, right? I think it's fair to say it looks like the Eiffel Tower, in which it does. Like, obviously, it's aesthetically different. What, like, I don't know, man. It seems kind of. I'm lost.
And this city bears resemblance to the city of Paris. In fact,
Of course,
if you
yeah.
take yourself on Google Street View and you plop yourself right about here, I think I found the street that the trailer is actually set on, which is pretty cool. And credit to Game Freak that I managed to do that, and then I could tell what they were going for. But where Paris had these beautiful iron metal balconies, in Game Freak's rendition of that, they have these beautiful iron metal balcony JPEGs. I'm gonna what?
No, yeah, and I think that's fair to bring up, like as we've been talking about, like because it does like show like a quote unquote level of laziness. However, in game development, they do copy and paste a ton of assets and PNGs all the time. Like this is a pretty common occurrence. But like them being jutted out would make more sense, like because it is kind of weird when you just stop here and just look at it. But if you're not meant to stop and freeze frame look at it, does it like I don't know. I like because you can pause any animated movie ever, right? And go frame by frame and find quote unquote animation mistakes when it was actually just like them being smart. Because when you look at something, right, in a quick succession, you know, of course, it's not going to look the same as if you freeze framed and went frame by frame. That's kind of just logic. Like you do that with literally any animated movie ever, straight up. Like find an animated movie, your favorite animated movie, right, and go frame by frame. You will find animation mistakes that are actually just the animators being smart, not having to work as much. Because a good chunk of like creating something is getting it put out effectively, right? Like, I don't know. I just don't think this is an argument that makes a ton of sense, right? Like, I think for them being kind of flat, sure. But I think if they were jutted out, people would still complain about them not being that pretty, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like this is kind of like I'm gonna be like, it's not me attacking this guy, but it's just kind of like the argument of like, oh, hey, it's not as good as I want it to be, therefore it's bad, right? If that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense.
Actually quite speechless. This is not the way they did it in any of the other games. This is new. And also,
How'd I pause there?
Freak, by your own logic, if you were just going to copy paste it, you could have just made one balcony and then copy pasted that a bazillion times. Why this? I don't think they're even that lazy. I think there is something else going on here. In Scarlet and Violet, despite how intentional those buildings were, from a distance, or really even up close, but definitely from a distance, they look like the low resolutions and lack of any kind of anti-aliasing. They shimmer and shine, but like in the worst way. So Game Freak,
they don't
not
look
knowing
good.
how to fix this very basic issue, found yet another gameplay development workaround for Pokemon ZNA. Flat, lifeless buildings with a picture of what a nice building.
Wait, hold on.
Gameplay development workaround for Pokemon ZNA.
Which, like, let's look at this real quick, right? And I think it's true for the most part. These all look kind of meh, right? I think that's fair to say that they're kind of like, oh, you know, they're fine, I guess. You know, are they? They're all kind of samey. I don't think there's like any. I mean, I'm sure there's like a copy and pasted building somewhere. Like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure this one where my mouse is on right now, it looks to be the same as this one, right? For the most part, yeah. Like it has the bushes here, like same design. Like, yeah, and I think that's a fair criticism to an extent. But of course, like every game's going to copy the assets, right? Like I don't disagree with like the generalized point, but we do have to be practical. You know, like every game's going to copy and paste the stuff, right? You know, like, oh, these balconies aren't different. Like, I don't know, man. It's like it's kind of a meh point, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like I don't hate the idea of it. Maybe the execution of it just isn't that great.
Flat, lifeless buildings with a picture of what a nice building could look like, glued to the front. Now you might say,
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of true for the most part.
does it really matter, Wood, what a building looks like in a video game?
It kind of does,
say,
yeah.
Yes, if it looks like this, I'm going to say something. But also, this whole game is set in a city. When you go to New York City and you want to take in the sights, what do you look at? Is it the rats in the street? Is it the weird people dancing on the train that you try really hard not to make eye contact with because you're scared? No, it's the building.
Well, no, you do look at that stuff. I'm gonna keep it a buck. You look at that stuff not because you're fucking just staring at it. You just see it. That's true. The buildings are like a major point of like big cities. That's true.
Looking at these the whole time I play, and they look like this, but some of them have some sort of depth to them. But clearly, this is also just one window design that has been copy and pasted.
Yeah, like I don't care about the copy and paste of windows because if you look at a building, they all have the same windows. Like I just don't think that's an argument. Like it just doesn't help you much. That seems more of a nitpick. Because if you look at any building ever, even with the Paris example you just showed, they all had the same fucking windows. Like it just is an argument.
Several times. What are these windows supposed to be? Or even the ones next to them? Like, I don't really know what I'm looking at. But what I do know is my favorite kind of balcony JPEG is the balcony JPEG that has a flower JPEG on top of it. I mean, that just...
No, yeah, and this is fair. This is a fair criticism here. Like, I think them being jutted out wouldn't make sense, right? But the one example when he's like, oh, hey, you're freeze frames and you're doing the teleport thing up. I feel like if it's not meant to be looked at, like, you standing still, and it's just like a flat image, like, I don't think that's that crazy. You know? If that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense, because I feel like I'm explaining things poorly. Because, like, if you're supposed to, like, stop and look at it, or have the ability to stop and look at it, it looks like shit. Okay, why does it look like shit, right? But if you're just, like, running by it, right, and it looks fine when you're zipping by, but if you were to freeze frame my game footage and look at it, it's like, I don't know, it's just not much of an argument. Like, if I wave my hand, right, at some point it's going to look smeary. You know, it's just like, yeah.
Ties the room together. But not a single window in this entire trailer has any kind of reflection at all, or presents itself as an actual f***ing window. They all just look like Game Freak Googled the word blue and used the first thing that came up in Google image results. Even these huge shop windows, which if we go back and we look at the actual Paris street, you can see a lot of these buildings have little storefronts under them. So this would be a really nice opportunity to fill this storefront window with a store. But nope, just a JPEG.
Yeah, it is just JPEG, and I think that's fair.
Get a close-up of this building as we climb all the way up like the world's ugliest elevator. They're using a JPEG for the whole building, but they couldn't even use a high-quality JPEG. Like, they couldn't even render in the JPEG. Who is designing these? Oh, at least it looks better than the other Pokemon games, does it?
I mean, it technically does look better than previous Pokemon games, but if you're not meant to freeze frame it, then of course they're not going to make it the craziest high-quality thing. But, again, I think I agree with the general point, but... yeah.
Does it? Because 6 years ago, in Sword and Shield, the windows actually had reflections. They weren't true reflections. They didn't actually reflect anything that was happening, but it was serviceable, and it got the point across, and honestly, looks pretty nice. But I guess this is yet another way that Game Freak found to pare down development, because they even did away with those in Scarlet and Violet. In fact, the only window I could find in the entire Scarlet and Violet game, and I had to ride around that sucker for way too long, by the way, I forgot how janky it was this one, and I don't understand what the hell is going on up there. It's just very confusing. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, I have no idea what that's supposed to be either.
Again, sorry, I'm filming this in the future after I recorded a ton more gameplay for Scarlet and Violet. I actually didn't remember how bad this truly was. These characters popping in and out, seemingly at random. It's not even distance-based. And by the way, when I say disappear, I literally mean disappear. You can't go and find them again.
Yeah, they just kind of fade. It is kind of strange.
They're just erased from the game. This video isn't supposed to be about Scarlet and Violet, but my god. Also, I was recording footage for the video and I saw this and I never noticed it.
Yeah, I don't think that happens anymore. Question mark, that might still happen. I don't remember actually, because I haven't ridden around Scarlet Valley in a hot minute. But like, yeah, things do just kind of like pop in, including textures. It's kind of goofy.
But it's because I'm so obsessed with Windows right now. Another cheap tactic that Game Freak does in their game is they have this placeholder unrendered in city that looks terrible from a distance, but the placeholder city doesn't have lights in the windows. So when you get a little closer to the city, it pops and fully renders in the actual city, and because it's night, the lights all just turn on. They didn't even make an unrendered in version with lights on for the nighttime, because
yeah, and I think that's a fair criticism.
Why bother? But that window and subsequently the building that it's attached to brings me to another very good point. All three of these games have something in common. Well, graphics. So I guess two things. They all have one nice building. Each game has a central location building that looks night and day better than any other structure in the game. Like in Scarlet and Violet, it was the school, which looked fantastic, and then in Arceus, it was whatever that big building was in the village.
Actually, I forget what the name was of the building. There was a name for it, but it was basically like the survey HQ or some shit.
That they did stuff in. I don't know. I skipped the story. And my assumption here is that it's a tactic to kind of trick our brains into thinking the game actually looks nicer than it does, because the building that you might have gone to most frequently actually didn't look that bad. And for example,
I mean, maybe? Probably? I don't know. It's hard to say for certain because, like, don't other games also have, like... I mean, obviously not every game's gonna have, like, a centralized headquarters, right? But, like, the thing that they put the most time in being, like, the HQ kind of makes sense. You know? Like, I kind of... I mean, like, he might be right. I'm not sure.
Example, in Pokemon ZNA, we get in this trailer a shot of the main character picking out of the 3 Pokemon, and there is this, quite frankly, gorgeous structure behind him. Just wonderful stonework, designs, there's arches, there's depth, vines, and grass. There's possibly even a reflective window in this sucker. This clearly
I don't see no windows. Well, I mean, I see windows, but I don't see no reflective windows.
demonstrates that Game Freak can design buildings like this. They don't, though. They either just, I guess, don't care about the rest of the game, or maybe they don't have the time, maybe they're being rushed, or maybe...
I mean, I feel like time management's probably the most reasonable thing. Also throwing this out there, you are explaining your points well enough that anyone should understand where you're coming from. Catching up, had a phone call, so it paused the stream. Yeah, you're all good, dog. Also, you can, future reference, what I do when I'm watching streams, I have to, like, go do something. I pause the stream, come back, and I watch it in 2x speed to catch up, so I don't miss anything. That's something I do. Because you can, because if you pause the live stream, you can go into your settings and then hit 2x speed to catch up. That way you don't miss anything, but you're able to catch up to a live stream at some point. I don't see reflective windows either. I mean, like, obviously there was like a bit where he was talking about, oh, hey, there's reflective windows for Sword and Shield, which aren't like true reflections, obviously, but there's like a glisten. And then there's this one giant window at the Blueberry Academy. Not Blueberry Academy. The Academy in Scraffa. I forget what the name of the academies are called. But there's these giant windows, right? In Legends of ZA, so far doesn't really have any reflective windows. I mean, there could be, but like, I don't know, it might not make or break the game, but I understand where he's coming from.
Maybe it's all of these extra designs and details just makes the game look a little worse because it's more things to render. I mean, God forbid we render in a JPEG of a building, let alone an actual building. They don't want to bog the game down with anything that might hurt the overall presentation. A great
Oh wait, hold up, right? So if we go back, right?
of a building, let alone an actual building. They don't want to
And then I pause here, right? Like, this isn't really meant to be looked at, like, in a freeze frame. This doesn't look very good. Like, there's, like, some mock shadows. I don't think this is a 3D, like, renderation. Like, I don't think the... I mean, I don't... They could be jutted out, right? Like, as you can see with these balconies, right? They could be jutted out, or these could just be shadows, like, drawn on, because they kind of look like you went in, like, Photoshop and, like, kind of added some shadows, right? But this isn't designed to be looked at a fucking freeze frame. This is designed to be looked at going up in the trailer, right? Like, as we can see coming up.
bog the game down
Like, yeah, it's designed to be looked at like that. So, like, of course, things are not going to look as great when you pause them. Like, that's just... Like, yeah, that's just how animation works.
with anything that might hurt the overall presentation. A great example here of what I'm looking for, bare minimum, from these games is to look at Scarlet and Violet again, but in 4K. The low resolution...
Which, like, I think they're doing 4K for the Switch 2 with Scarlet and Violet. I think that's what they're doing. So, like, I mean, hey, like, if it saves the game, saves the game. Like, because I think it's fair to be like, yeah, Scarlet and Violet looks like shit. It needs some hardcore polish, which is true.
of this game on the Switch is not the Switch's fault. These games are very basic. It's just that Game Freak doesn't know how to optimize or build a 3D world. That's not...
And I think that's more or less fair for the most part, at least from that Scarlet and Violet, because the game just isn't really optimized that well. Like, a buddy of mine had a theory that's like, okay, what if they just didn't send a like dev kit of the Switch to Game Freak during the development of the game, which would be really funny if that's true. It's not true, but that'd be really funny.
Not a controversial thing to say. We've seen it countless times in other games on the console, and I know the console can't do 4K, but this is what the game looks like when you fix the resolution.
Yeah, and it looks really nice.
No, that didn't really help my point. No, I'm kidding. It's a night and day difference. And you can see what they designed. And this is probably what it actually looked like on their end when they made the game on a PC before they had to scale it down somehow for the Switch.
No, yeah, like, honestly, they probably did make something super crazy fancy looking, but they're like, oh, wait, we have to scale it. It's like whenever YouTubers make thumbnails, right? So, quick little YouTube fun fact. Most people edit their thumbnails full screen, right? Like, this entire screen, right? The stream isn't going in 1080p currently, right? Or should be going 1080p. If it's not 1080p, damn. But so 1080p, right? The stream's going in 1080p. And so people will make the thumbnail, like, say 1080p, right? And they'll blow it up all big, and they'll view it as a full screen thumbnail, and they're editing everything, going bang, 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 bang. This is all cool. But then it gets shrunk down, and people miss a ton of detail, right? And sometimes the quality of the thumbnail also goes down because it's being condensed and all that jazz, right? So you need to edit the thumbnail in the smaller size. That way you can actually see the details that are important for the thumbnail, right? And so Game Freak may have just made the game in 4K, or hell, even 1080p. And they're like, oh wait, we need to downsize it. And so things just got like bogged and fucked up. It's possible. Who knows?
Rather than trying to figure this out, they just took out anything in the game that would look bad in low resolution.
Like, it is like a Legends game, so it's not like their main draw. Because while Legends Arceus is probably, at least in my opinion, maybe like a top 3 Pokemon game. It's so fucking good. But like it didn't sell nearly as well as like any other Pokemon game. Like actually let me double check this. Let me take a sip of water first. Pokemon sales by games. Oh yeah, so number one's red, blue, or red, green, blue, I should say. Let's see. Which actually I don't think this is updated because Scarlet and Violet I think sold more than Sword and Shield because this says Sword and Shield's number 2. All right, so Control F and then I do Arceus, right? Arceus is number 12 apparently with like 14 million. It's still pretty good, right? But it sold less than Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, right? If these numbers are correct, which I'll probably double check it later in post. But it still sold less than Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, even though definitively Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl are just worse games. Like I'm keeping it a buck, dude. BDSP is not that good. And then you have like Legends Arceus, which is a phenomenal game, right? Like these games aren't going to sell as well regardless. And there could be a thing of like, okay, these aren't going to sell as well. This will be our experimental game. And even if things don't look that good, we're doing a ton of experimenting, right? That's possible. Doesn't necessarily like expunge them of quote unquote guilt of like half-assing certain quality issues. That is like something we do have to keep in mind with Legends of specifically. And so if they copy and paste a ton of assets and just experiment a ton with like say megas or different mechanics, like I think that's ultimately they're going to try to do the mechanics issues, or they're going to deal with mechanic stuff, because Pokemon's main draw is not that it's a beautiful scenic area, it's that it's a cool fun game that people have a lot of fun playing no matter what, right? Because I like there are quote unquote, even though quote unquote bad Pokemon games like Generation 2 and like BDSP, there's still some level of fun you can have with it, you know? BDSP was bad in my opinion, but I would love to see Mystery Dungeon in that style. I think that'd be cool. I haven't played Mystery Dungeon. I need to play Mystery Dungeon at some point. One of the games, like a YouTuber buddy, or I guess a streaming buddy of mine was like, "Oh hey, you should play Mystery Dungeon. That's great." And I'm like, "I don't know, maybe." But yeah, BDSP isn't even like necessarily a bad game. It's like a bad remake, which that's something I need to make a video on at some point. It's like talking about like what makes a bad remake or what makes a good Pokemon remake, because like people drastically misunderstand the existence of like all the Pokemon games, right? Because each Pokemon game like exists for a reason. But that's time for another day.
Other than fixing the resolution. If you look at the streets of Pokemon ZNA as a whole, it gets its point across and you get what they're going for. But as soon as you look at any one element on its own, the flaws start to show. The fact that they still can't design anything with a high enough poly count to actually make it round, that no NPC in this game has a shadow. And that goes for most objects too, except this awning, based on everything else in this picture, why does it even have a shadow? Yeah.
No, yeah, and I think that's fair. Yeah, like why shit no have shadow? Thank you. It was a bad remake, not a bad Pokemon game. Well, I mean, it was a bad it was like a bad Pokemon game. You still enjoy it, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But is like if you had to put a game in F tier, right, for Pokemon games, you're probably putting BDSP down there. Because like, why the fuck does it exist? You know?
I just wanted to take one more look at this awning with you guys. Why is it here? There's plenty of shop fronts, even in this same image and other images.
Yeah, like this is really weird. I don't understand what like did someone like forget this here? Was someone like testing something out? I think this is a completely fair and reasonable thing. It's like why is this here, right? And it does have a shadow, and I like the character here has a shadow. I think it looks like this guy has a shadow, or there could be weird grass texture, but I'm pretty sure this guy has a shadow. This guy doesn't seem to have a shadow, and I think that's a fair criticism. Like why no shadow? Well, then again, if nothing has shadow, why does this have shadow?
That don't have awnings. What is the point of the awning? Why is it only on 3 of the 5 windows? What is it covering? There's no tables, there's no chairs. Also, why is the awning like half a millimeter thick? One gust of wind and that sucker's gone. When Sword and Shield revealed and I had an issue with the trees, I became the tree guy for a minute. Everyone was like, what is the problem with the trees? Who cares about the trees?
I think that's fair to criticize the tree, but like in 2025, we kind of got to get over it.
This time I'm going to be the window guy or the awning guy. Crap.
In which, by the way, I think it's fair to be like, why is this awning here? Or hold on, we're going to go backwards. Boom. Hold on. Boom. In case you didn't know, you can use your comma and your period on your keyboard to go back by frames. Yeah, because the arrow keys go by like 5 or 10 seconds. But yeah, this is a fair and reasonable thing to like criticize. Because like, what the fuck is this? Why? It's just weird. You know? It's like you're drawing a picture. You're using entirely pencil, right, to draw this picture. And then you're like, I'm going to put a stamp on it. It's like, the stamp's cool, I guess, but why? You know, why'd you do it?
crashing out over windows and an awning. And once again, it does seem like NPCs are incapable of moving around the game world. They just stand there lifelessly. I mean, this was the case in Pokemon Arceus as well. Even 60 hours into my playthrough, this old lady is still sweeping that one spot. I'm sorry, honey. If it ain't clean now, it probably ain't gonna be.
Nah, dude, she's trying to, she's got to get every little particle of dirt and grime out. Like, she's working hard. Leave my lady alone.
Scarlet and Violet, there were some characters that had animations, like a little jig, and it looks like those have been stripped out. And then there were even a few NPCs that would walk around, but due to the game having absolutely terrible draw distances and crazy pop in and pop out, those characters would disappear and reappear like ghosts. And Game Freak, rather than try and figure out how to not have that happen, decided to glue their feet to the ground tighter than they glue the JPEGs to the buildings. Of course, that one is an assumption because they haven't played the full game. Maybe they do move around. A lot of this,
like, yeah, like there is a lot of assumptions happening, which I do think it's fair to be like, okay, why is everything kind of lifeless? I think that's a completely fair and reasonable criticism. Like, that does make sense. And if you pause here, why does the Megastone look kind of like, well, it's that is not a keystone. That is a gay ball. That is a ball of gay. It's like that is a ball of gay that we're looking at right now. The ball, the gay ball. Oh, dude, that should not have been that funny. That was not that funny. Why did I laugh at that so hard? But yeah, like I think that's fair criticism. Like, yeah, why are things so lifeless when it's so close to release? I think that's fair. Which actually, what this would have been? I almost picked my fucking nose. That would have been that would have been what? Like, I'm trying to remember when this trailer released. Actually, I might need to watch the new trailer at some point, or the most recent trailer, to see if the people were also as lifeless and just kind of standing around. Because if they are, this is actually a completely reasonable criticism with no flaws, I'd say so. But if they do move, it's like, okay, it's whatever, you know? But then again, this video's like, I think over a month old, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, how old is it? We can scroll down and figure it out. March 21st. Oh yeah, so like 2 months. Okay. Yeah, so like this is a really early trailer. So like I think a lot of stuff. Actually, I might need to rewatch the trailer. Yeah, because he might generally just be hardcore right. Aren't they still using a team of like 280 people that are split half of the whole team? A works on Pokemon and Team B works on non-Pokemon games. I think that's right. I think you're correct. Yeah, because Game Freak doesn't just make Pokemon. Pokemon just happens to be their most popular thing. As a gay ball for my PFP, I agree a lot. Actually, yeah, I didn't notice that. That's funny. Hold on, let me click over here. Hold on. Oh wait, it's not letting me check the thing. Hold on. Wait, there we go. Oh yeah, that's just straight up just a gay Pokeball. That's really funny. I had to look at your PFP larger. That's really funny. Oh wait, I don't need this open. There we go. All right. Gotta close a tab to make space for my RAM. Gotta get more RAM. But yeah, the gay ball is really funny. I mean, honestly, but back to it. Like, I think that might be a genuine criticism if the people are still kind of lifeless in the newest trailer, which they may have been. I don't remember.
This is based on just the trailer, and I feel like some people are going to say, well, you haven't even played the full game yet. And again, this trailer is rendered in-game. I'm assuming based on all their other trailers, and this is what they've shown us, and I'm literally only talking about what I'm seeing in this trailer. I'm sure I'll find a whole piss of things once I start playing the game to complain about. What?
I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Hey, wait, how about the absolutely no ground animations for these sand?
No, yeah, because, like, it's supposed to be them, like, swimming, right? And I think there being something back there would be great. I think this is a fair thing to talk about. Because they do kind of look like they're just gliding through, you know? Like, maybe if they make more dirt, where it's like you couldn't reasonably see behind them, right? Then I think this would be fine. But they do just kind of, like, they do just kind of go, if that makes sense, right? Because, like, if you look at this, right?
Things once I start playing the game to complain about. Why wait? How about
like, yeah, they just kind of go.
Ground animations for these?
Yeah, they just kind of go, you know? Which I think would be fine if there was, like, more dirt. Because then you wouldn't be able to see the backs. Because if you've seen, like, an actual alligator or crocodile, like, swim through the water, right? They do kind of like push some water behind their head, right? And you can see like their tails and stuff like kind of like wiggle around under the water, right? Assuming the water's clear enough to see. And I feel like that's what's happening here, right? However, they just are probably doing a really smart animation thing where they just don't animate the entire thing below the neck, because why would you? They just have it go like zip. I think they just need more dirt behind it so they can kind of hide that, you know? Because like that would just be smart.
Sandiles who look more like they're glitching through the floor than swimming through the
yeah, that makes sense.
This few second shot,
which like, yeah, like what is up with this brick? This brick is fucking yeah, you know, like what is What is this?
right here is absolutely insane to me. The Pokemon and the people are fully rendered in, but nothing else in the shot is. The floor is blurry, the brick is blurry, and that's before we even talk about the fact this is a moving shot, and every frame of the animation has the floor down here glitching on the wall.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, I don't understand how this happened.
And this is what they chose to show us. And don't get me wrong, the Pokemon look fantastic. The moves and the animations of that, the battling, really flashy. I even like the way the UI looks. It's sleek, it's nice. And some people
UI does look very nice, and also you can catch a Pokemon that has been knocked out. That is Big Boy W.
say it's a Legends game. It's a spin-off of the main series. It's not supposed to look as nice, but then that goes
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
against the people that are saying that it looks better than Scarlet and Violet, which was a main series game. So which is it? Arceus used a more cel-shaded style of visual, which I think actually helped hide a lot of the imperfections. When that game came out, I don't think I really even complained about the way the game looked. I actually kind of liked it. This new Legends game, though, has seemingly dropped that, and they've moved towards the more mainline series art direction. It's not cel-shaded. You know, I struggle to call this realistic, but I guess you know what I mean. And this game, at face value, does look better than Scarlet and Violet.
I mean, you wouldn't call any Pokemon game realistic. There'll never be a Pokemon game that actually comes out as realistic.
And because they stripped out anything and made everything flat to trick your brain into thinking that it actually does look.
I mean, like, not really. Like, I do understand, like, the whole thing of, like, because I was, like, defending this, quote-unquote, earlier, where it's like, oh, hey, it's flat, I don't care kind of thing. It would be nicer if it was jutted out, but I don't think that's them tricking the brain and being like, oh, it looks good. I think it's just them just kind of plastering, like, a texture on a wall. Like, I agree. Like, it should be better, right? But it's also just kind of like a nothing burger issue to me.
Look good when it really doesn't. But there are some things, to be fair, that legitimately.
Which I hope that also makes sense, where it's like, I can care about something, but also kind of not care about it, right? Like, I'd like it to look nicer when it comes to a wall texture, but like, meh, you know?
Really do look a lot nicer. The inside of buildings here have a much more warm and high resolution.
Which we've only seen one, or we've only seen like two, I think, so far. Inside 2 or 3 buildings, I think. So it's like, for all we know, everything else could, in theory, look worse, but I think it's going to look more or less like this, which does look very nice.
Feel like it feels cozy. I took some examples from other games set in similar office-style buildings. It's very clear that the new one doesn't look as bad. Another thing that stood out to me immediately is the grass textures. I don't think the grass in ZNA looks particularly pleasant, but you compare it to Scarlet and Violet, and what were they thinking?
No, yeah, and I agree. Like, I think the grass looking better would make a ton more sense, but again, just kind of meh.
It's like a sea of Lamborghini green. Like, it is neon. It's probably as green as the green screen I'm standing on. Put me in the grass, Zach. Hello? This was a full
Put me in the grass.
ass game we were handed just a few years ago that we all paid $60 for, complete with 12 FPS gameplay and more bugs than under a rock in my garden. I get
Like, I talked about this earlier, like, again, like, the 1.0 version had, like, a ton of bugs. I had never faced into, or I never ran into any of those, like, crazy-ass bugs people were talking about. I just never did.
guess if ZA is good enough to make
Like, now, just because I never ran into something does not mean those glitches didn't exist, because obviously they did. But the biggest reason why, like, some people will, like, speedrun certain versions of the game is because certain bugs or certain frame rates happen, right? And a big thing was 1.0 version had a ton of bugs in it. You know, and that's where, like, 90% of those videos came from. Of, like, oh, hey, we have a bug where we have these black particles swarming across the screen in that one city with the water-type gym leader, right? That doesn't happen in the current version of the game, at least not to my knowledge, because I've never seen it outside of day one launch. Or actually, no, it wasn't day one launch. It was before that, because we were getting the games early. Because you would pay the fucking GameStop employee like 50 extra bucks for the game, and they would just give you the version. But since it was not out yet, you couldn't patch the game. Like, and that's ultimately what ended up happening. You know, there's the people who get the game early, right? Not have a day one patch and just run into all those bugs because they're just getting the game early. You know, that's most of what the stuff was happening.
people finally look back at
Or when most of the stuff was happening, I mean.
Scarlet and Violet and realize that they were ripped off in 2022, I mean, I'll take it. I made a video about that game, and people were equally upset with me for that.
No, and I think I agree. Like, this probably should not have been a $6 game. I think that's fair and practical. I think that's a perfectly fair and reasonable thing to say. Be like, okay, this game is not like a $60 AAA title game, or it's not. It's a AAA title game that should not be worth $60. I think that's also fair and reasonable. Like, yeah, that's fair to say. It's like, yeah, it should not be worth $60.
I feel like throughout this video, I've been
Like, let's do like 40. let's go back to 3DS era. Let's do $40 games.
really trying to get ahead of anything that people will try to say to invalidate my opinion that the game looks bad. And I do.
I mean, the game, like, when it comes to Scarlet Violet, it, like, definitively looks bad. Legend ZA looks significantly better. It's complete, almost like a completely different studio, it looks like, right? However, it's still not perfect. But we can't just be hating on, like, the people, or the hating on the stuff blindly, right? It's like people who, like, hate on, like, Overwatch a lot, right? Which, like, Blizzard has done some stupid shit with Overwatch, right? For those of you who don't know, Overwatch is supposed to have a PvE game mode, right? Which was the entire point of Overwatch 2 existing, right? That was the entire point of it. then they end up scrapping it, right? People are like, damn, that sucks, right? And that's fair and reasonable. And because like it should have like that's the point of Overwatch 2 existing, right? And then they're like, Overwatch 2 is like poorly balanced and there's all this shit, right? And people like were still mad at the game, right? Even though they were progressively making the game better and better. And then boom, Overwatch Stadium came out and people were still shitting on it, even though Stadium's fucking great, by the way. You know, if you were a fan of Overwatch, dropped it, play Stadium. It's fucking incredible, right? But we're going to continually just hate on them perpetually forever just because they did some dumb shit earlier, right? You know, even though there's different people involved with the studio, you know, and all this stuff, and they've even whenever it comes to Game Freak's side of this whole thing, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but he was just like, yeah, we're gonna take time to like make decent games. And that's good. You know, like we can praise that stuff is getting better while still saying it's not perfect, right? But at least the thing coming up will be better because like a big chunk of it, like just like Professor Bond brought up earlier, is like half the studio basically kind of like only about half the studio actually works on the games. The other half like does like some other projects, right? And that makes sense, right? Like, of course, you're gonna be working on multiple projects. Like, their big things, they just need more manpower, right? They need more manpower and they need more reasonable deadlines, you know. But luckily, the Pokemon Journeys anime is still going for a good bit, if I'm mistaken. And so usually the game release time goes somewhat in sync with the anime, the TCG, and all the other stuff they use as the most recent assets of the Pokemon games. So hopefully, things work out. Legends ZA won't be the perfect Pokemon game everyone's wishing it's going to be, but but I almost said Legends 10, but Gen 10 might. You know, Gen 11 might, or whatever game's going to be coming in between. Those generally might be the games, right? Like, I don't know, people expecting Scarlet Violet stuff and then going like let's say Scarlet Violet quality of visuals, right? Then expecting like GTA 6, right? Doesn't make any fucking sense, right? But I do agree. Criticize where the criticism is required, right? But there is some level of praise that just needs to be given. Like I feel like that just makes the most sense. You know, like yeah, let me just shit on them all the time, right? For I don't say for no reason, right? But if you do nothing but shit on someone or something, then why would it ever get better? You know, like to criticize something, you have to point out positives. You know, because that's how proper criticism works. Otherwise, you're just kind of hating. You know.
I do feel like it's a losing battle. I mean, on my podcast recently, I pointed out that the games still look pretty rough, and one of the top comments said I was wrong, and that they actually really like the way the game looks so far, because Pet Pig is back, and...
I mean, that's just really dumb. Like, don't get me wrong, right? I don't agree with everything, right? But he is also spitting facts on a ton of shit also. You know? It's like, or I guess the better way to put it is, like, I agree with the generalized points. However, like, I'm trying to put this in a way that makes sense. Like, I agree with the generalized points, but you can't just be, like, hating all the time, you know? It's like, yeah, this is good, but it could be better. I feel like that's the better perspective, if that makes sense. And this point from Nebby is really, really stupid. It's really, really stupid. If I'm not mistaken, they use their most skilled employees for non-Pokemon games, and then those that are fresh out of school or not experienced to work on the Pokemon games. I mean, maybe? I don't know. I would need to see like an interview or something, or like a source to like check that off. And you might be right. It would be weird if that's true though, because I feel like you'd want your most experienced people to work on the thing that gets you the most money. You know? I mean, then again, like Pokemon games again, like 10%. So like I don't know. Like you could be right. There might be something somewhere that says that.
Yeah, he is. People even calling me a snob, that I'm moving the goalpost for Game Freak. I'm not sure where the goalpost is for Game Freak in my mind, but I'm telling you now, they've never even been in the same zip code.
Like, yeah, I get, like, it is completely fair to shit on them for, like, why am I falling through the world? But then again, never had that happen on like, the day one patches, like, low version 1.1.
That mother... I can't say it's better than before. I will concede to at least it being different. And it is. It is different.
I mean, I'm gonna be real. It is better than before. Like that. Like you can say it's better than before, still criticize it.
I can't say it's better than before. I
mean, this is definitively like Legends ZA. Definitively looks better than Scarlet Violet. That is just definitive. Like it's hard to refute that.
Will concede to at least it being different. And it is.
That is true. That is different.
It is different. This
is also better.
Not how they've ever designed buildings before. That is very different. But
no, yeah, but like again, that's designed to be like I don't know, because like then again, you do walk up to the elevator, so my point might be a little stupid. Where it's like you're not supposed to see it like slow mode, you know? Like yeah, so honestly, maybe my point was just kind of stupid there.
In doing that, they have managed to clean up the resolutions and that weird jank that we saw in previous games, and some people might actually prefer that trade-off. But I'm just here asking, in 2025, why can we not have both?
No, yeah, 100%. We can 100% have both. That's 100% true. One of the times kind of violate a YouTuber, Jerry Can, covered reviews from Pokemon Company. A few employees mentioned that they know Pokemon sells, so they don't put effort into it. No, yeah, that makes sense. Excuse me. Then, which, by the way, that is 100% true. Pokemon will basically sell almost no matter what, because most people don't care about. I don't want to say it's superficial, right? Because obviously it's not. But like visually graphics, like people don't care about it that much. They mostly just want to like run around, catch a Pokemon, use the Pokemon to hit shit, right? I think that's what most people play Pokemon for, you know, and I think that's completely true. Like, I mean, they might use their unexperienced like employees for Pokemon games. That's possible, and that would kind of make sense with like that whole thing being like, oh, you know, we don't need to try because why would we? Pokemon's going to sell a billion copies even if we don't put in that much work into the graphics, which is probably true for them. Like honestly, yeah, I'd say it's true for the most part. Because, like, I don't know, I find it hard to believe that Wolfie VGC is going to be like, oh, this Pokemon game looks bad. I'm not going to pick it up. I mean, for Legends EA, maybe, because he doesn't need to play it, right? But, so, like, some of the bigger YouTubers are like, okay, you know, this, I'm not going to play this game anymore because it looks bad. Or hell, like, I'm not going to stop playing Pokemon because it looks bad. Because, like, I enjoy the gameplay and the adventure and the aspects way more than the visuals. You know, so maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the problem. Like, I still, like, criticize, like, which I'm not super vocal about it because I haven't really had a reason to. But, obviously, criticize like how Scarlet Violet works or looks, rightfully so.
Apologize for this, but sometimes I wonder if it's me, my ADHD, or whatever is wrong with me mentally, where I hyperfixate on something. But when I look at these buildings, or if you want to call these textures, or
no, yeah, and I think it's fair to be like, okay, this thing looks gross.
This face mask, you know, I get offended. I can't help but stare at them the whole time, and they're just preventing me from being able to fully immerse myself in the experience.
And yeah, and I think that's fine for the most part. Like, I think those are fine, like, criticisms to, like, be like, okay, this thing needs to look good, or else it's going to distract me. I think that's fair. But we also have to take into perspective, like, whenever it comes to game development especially, like, for the ripple reactions of, oh, hey, we need, like, a 4K Pokemon game that looks fucking incredible, like, with how game development cycles also work, because people also never bring that up, by the way. People never bring up game dev cycles for some fucking reason. Like, we're probably getting, like, the most beautiful game probably like Gen 11, right? Because Gen 10 is probably almost fucking done by this point. Like Gen 10's probably almost done. And then they probably have like a remake, which is, or they might skip a remake coming up. And they probably have like a game in between Generation 10, Generation 11. Generation 11 is where like the crazy good Pokemon game's going to be. That's my money. Gen 11's going to be super crazy good. Sadly, hardcore VGC players are going to buy it because Pokemon they need will be spread out between several games and paid DLC, so it's like they don't have a chance. They need to buy it. That's kind of true. So, whenever it comes to Pokemon VGC, right, and also just Pokemon Scarlet Violet, right, you only need the base game. You don't need the DLC. You could have someone transfer you over an Ogerpon, and you don't need the Teal Mask DLC, right? There are ways around it, right? Most people just get the games themselves because they still enjoy Pokemon. Right? Like, they still enjoy running around catching stuff. Like, even the most hardcore VGC fans still play Pokemon like they're a little kid, right? And I think it's fair and reasonable. Like, I think it's fine. Play Pokemon like a little kid. You know, run around, catch it. You know, let's go. But, like, because there's always ways around getting certain Pokemon and everything. Like, you don't need every game to get every Pokemon, right? Like, if you really need Calyrex, right? Like, get a friend. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's going to be much easier to buy Sword and Shield and then buy the DLC. That's way easier because you don't have to bother a guy, right? At the same time, if you ask a friend and they're cool with it, they might just get you a Calyrex. Like, a buddy of mine asks me all the time, oh, hey, I've been doing a bunch of stuff from Sword and Shield. Do you want any Pokemon? Like, I'm being dead ass. Like, it's really easy to get Pokemon when you don't have the games, because like you can just ask people, you know. Worst case scenario, you have to give them money to give you the Calyrex. worst case scenario, right? But even then, that doesn't happen that much. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like those arguments are from people who just don't have friends. Like, like, don't get me wrong, right? If you aren't able to get friends, it sucks. You have to buy the previous games, right? Or the next games, right? Because there's probably going to be a Pokemon you need to transfer over that might be VGC viable. I think that's a fair criticism to an extent. However, friends, if you're big enough PokeTuber or YouTuber in general, a fan will probably give you the Ursaluna. It's like, I feel like there's always ways around this stuff.
Feel like that 10-year-old boy that would just want to go around catching Pokemon and ignoring everything the adults are saying, which I still do even now in real life. I ignore everything people are. That's probably it's ADHD. Ultimately,
ignoring people is not ADHD. Like, most people's opinions are fucking stupid.
If the game is fun, I agree, the game is fun. But I can't help but feel gaslit that this is acceptable game development from Game Freak at this point. There is no reason for their games not to be in a better place. Not to be in the same or better place than games like Mario, Zelda, Pikmin, Xenoblade, or any other Nintendo IPs.
No, yeah, and I think that's fair. However, fancy thing with Pikmin 4, right? Which does kind of throw a bit of a wrench in some of the modeling issues whenever it comes to stuff being like phasing out. Is Pikmin 4 what they would do, which I talked about this on stream as well, where you're running towards a Pikmin base, right? And there's a fiery blowhog standing there, right? He's just standing still up until you get really close to it. It's like he's not really rendered all that well, And I might need to look back at that and see if he's like popped into existence or not. I don't remember if he was or not. The leak showed Gen 10 was about 95% done by the time Scarlet Violet DLC was announced, which was also around the time Pokemon Company put job posting for 80 more hires for Gen 11. Yeah, honestly, yeah. And I think that's more or less true. Gen 10 is going to be a solid game, don't get me wrong, right? But whenever it comes to game cycles, like game development cycles, right? Like, Gen 10, when I said it was like basically almost done earlier, I was being dead ass. Like, I was being 100% like with you. Because whenever it comes to game development cycles, they have to be on top of it. Because if not, then they just die, right? They just aren't able to produce content. They're not able to produce games. They're able to produce merchandise. They aren't able to do anything, right? So, like, honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if Generation 11 is, like, halfway done. Like, I would not be surprised. I just wouldn't. Like if a Game Freak executive walked out on, like, a live stream and said, oh, by the way, Generation 11 is 50% done, I would believe him, right? I would straight up just believe him. Because with that, my understanding of game development cycles is like they have to be producing stuff all the time. They just have to be.
Stubbornness. It has to be. It's focusing in
well, it has to be, as he says,
on that tight release window. Since despite the games being the main source of fandom, the merchandise is where the real money is.
Yeah, and that makes sense because you can buy 1 billion. Like, most people don't buy 2 Pokemon games, right? They buy the one for that generation, right? Like, most people did not buy Scarlet and Violet. They bought Scarlet or Violet, right? Now, did they buy a Miraidon and Koraidon plushie? Probably. The odds are pretty high, because you can buy 1 billion plushies. People aren't buying more than one Pokemon game most of the time. Whenever it comes to that generation, I mean.
Honestly, it feels like we're being taken advantage of. It offends me.
I think, actually, no, I don't think I agree with him. I do disagree with him, right? I think the quality of the product that gets you in should be high. I think that's fair.
Not offend you? Are you not offended? They just take advantage of Pokemon fans, knowing full well they can phone in the games and will buy them anyway because it's Pokemon. You love Pokemon, right? Why don't you buy this Wiglet plushie and this Victory Bell plushie, and please don't, whatever you do, don't combine them. There is 200 people working at Game Freak, which, prospectively, is not a lot of people.
Yep, okay, so it's a good thing that we're talking about this, right? Because the big thing, unironically, if they just, like, doubled their staff, right? Boom, they are dominating. That's all they have to do. Also, by the way, pop a like on the stream, please. I want likes. But if they just doubled like their workforce, which, to be fair, isn't the easiest thing to do, because you can't just like say, okay, let's just like 200 people, boom, 400 now, right? It just doesn't work that way, right? Because you do need to get shit. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Fuck, excuse me. But like, yeah, straight up, the moment they get more employees, right, the moment they can knock things out, is going to be the moment that we're going to get like Gen 11's going to be crazy good, and then like Gen 12 might be Game of the Year or something. I don't know, some crazy goofy shit. Mainly because the during the league. Oh wait, no, I read that. Hit the like and look as lol. True. Hit the like in the video, okay?
Studios like Rockstar, Naughty Dog, Bethesda, they have thousands of employees. I think Game
True.
Freak should be on these studios' level, if not a little higher. But we don't want to
Yeah, and I think this is a pretty fair and reasonable criticism.
muddy the waters with all of these employees. Like thousands, that's too much. I understand and I respect keeping a team small, but 200
No, yeah, keeping a team small like makes things so much easier. Because like Bethesda Studios is one of the worst fucking studios on the planet. like if you just like wait, like if you just like put some brain power into it and just look at stuff, like Skyrim is a buggy mess of a game. As great as Skyrim is, it is buggy as fuck. Right? Fallout was buggy as fuck. It's like, now to be fair, right? They are very high quality games, right? Very high quality games. But there is a reason why there's a song that makes fun of Todd Howard where he's just like, it just works. Right? Because like, just straight up, it just fucking works. Bethesda just fucking works as a game publishing company, right? They are not publishing, game development company, right? It just fucking works. You know, but like those games do not function that well. They like in the grandiose scheme of things, they just don't. Like every release of Skyrim, I just see something goofy that happens. Like, okay, this is Bethesda Studios, and it's like, and it makes sense, right? Like they're able to make shit at a very level, I guess, but still sell stuff at very high levels. Like get millions upon millions of dollars. It's the same thing with Game Freak. This is a perfectly fair and reasonable criticism. I don't think they should have thousands of employees. I think, honestly, they probably just need to double the workforce. I think that's the most reasonable thing. If you just double the workforce, you probably just get 10 times better games.
at this point might be a bit too small, don't you think? Even Xenoblade's developer Monolith Studios has 300 developers, and their games only sell a couple million units. Pokemon sells over 20 million. Something's not adding up. And Xenoblade, with even just 100 extra people, manages to make games that look like this. It's almost like having some extra people on board helped. And it's not just beautiful visuals that the Xenoblade team are putting together either. It's crazy over-the-top animated cutscenes and full voice acting. Breath of the Wild also had a 300-person team.
Oh yeah, that is a big gripe with Pokemon that people have. Is like there's no voice acting. I think that's a fair criticism. A lot of fair criticisms of the video, but like let's keep it a stack. The moment Pokemon adds voice acting, some of these games are cooked. Like even if Pokemon's like, yeah, we're just not going to increase the quality of the game, voice acting, people might actually just go bonkers for them. Like, I'm keeping it a stack.
It took them 4 years to make that game. Mario Odyssey had 360 people. That took them 3 years to make that game. Game Freak is understaffed, but they are in no way underfunded. I want to touch on...
This is 100% true. They're not underfunded by any stretch.
Something I said earlier, and that's that people always say, well, the games still sell. And yes, they still sell. They're one of the best-selling games.
That doesn't excuse, like, poor graphics, though. I like that. This is a really fair thing to say.
Franchises of all time. But when you look at the franchise prospectively, and how many millions, if not a billion people, love the property and the franchise that is Pokemon, why aren't more people buying the games? Yeah, 20 million's a lot. So is 40 million. So is 50.
Yeah.
You know, if some of these other franchises like Animal Crossing can break 50, something that most people probably didn't even know what that was when New Horizons came out, why can't the world's largest franchise that literally any grandma could probably point at a Pikachu and say its name, why are they only selling 20 million? Maybe because the games actually aren't that good. It's just that a lot of us are holding on to a dream.
I mean, like, that might be kind of true. Except for the game is just like, Scarlet Violet are just definitively good games, right? Now, you can say the quality of the graphics and in the grandiose scheme of things, they aren't as good as other Pokemon games. I think that is a fair thing to say. I think that's completely fair. However, they are definitively just good games. Like, they are a lot of fun. Like, people would always say, like, oh, damn, Scarlet Violet kind of looks ugly. But, like, I'm having the most fun with it. Like, straight up. Like, when Scarlet Violet dropped week 1, people were going crazy over Scarlet Violet. Even with, like, all the bullshit happening, that made a ton of funny clips, right? You know, some people even said that the game was better because of the bugs, which, by the way, I don't agree with, right? But people were saying that. And then people were like, oh, damn, like, the graphics look so bad, but I'm having so much fun just running around. Which is true. That's just true. The game is definitively good. You can't argue that it's bad. It is definitively a good game. Like, I think it's fair and reasonable to say it's ugly and it has a bunch of glitches and bugs, but to say it's not fun or it's not good is definitively just incorrect. I think that perspective is just wrong. I hope for voice acting, so many VAs have been cut. Oh yeah, well yeah, hold on. Let me read this properly. I hope for voice acting. So many VAs have done the cutscenes for Scarlet Violet, and with a voice acting made, the cutscenes are much easier to sit through. That is true. Agreed and fair. Yeah, and that's agreed and fair that like the games are definitively good, but you can also say that they don't look good. I think that's because like that's most people's perspective. I think like if I don't, well, if I made a poll, that doesn't really help, right? But if all the poke YouTubers on the planet, right, they're like, okay, we're gonna make a poll, right? What's your opinion on Scarlet Violet, right? They're like fun, but I feel like the number one thing would be like I think it'll be in this order, right? It would be fun game, but kind of ugly, right? Or doesn't function. I think that would be the thing that gets the number one results.
Played Pokemon throughout the generations, and ironically, as I've said before, they really struggle to evolve. We didn't even need great graphics back in the day. When I was a kid, it was black and white and little itty bitty sprites, and I still had an absolute blast. But at this
No, yeah, because like that was also what like when did Pokemon Red come out? Oh, you would think I'd have this done by memory by now. And I'm assuming he's American. Is February 27th, 1996 the Japanese release, or is that? I mean, we'll just say 1996, right? So if it was done in 1996, right? Like I wasn't born yet. We also got to keep in perspective like where we're at in the grandiose scheme of things. Like Pokemon Red was a ton of fun, even though it was black and white. Even though, like, yeah, Red and Blue is fun. But that's more so about it being fun because it's a Pokemon game as opposed to it being like a fun game, if that makes sense. Because Red and Blue has a ton of problems. Like, if you think the bugs and glitches were bad in Scarlet and Violet, like, oh my god, dude, Red and Blue was so much worse. Like you weren't falling through the world or anything because the whole thing was just 2D playing.
point,
Like if Red and Blue released as a 3D game, right, with in the state it was, you would have way more like hardcore like glitches. Like they would be way more apparent. Like they might not even be able to fix them, just straight up. Oof, that aged me. I wasn't born yet. Damn. Well, no, yeah, like I was not born 1996. I'm not an old head.
I would almost rather they just go back to doing sprites.
I'm not Unk status. Which, by the way, I think this is also a fair thing to say. I wish they went back to sprites because a lot of people really like the sprites, and I think if they went back to sprites, they wouldn't have the issues of 3D stuff. But at the same time, it would still get the criticisms of not being 3D yet, right? Because I don't know how like engulfed in like the Pokemon community everyone was, right? But in Gen 5, people were like, "What? We're not 3D yet." Even though this game released on the 3DS, we're not in 3D yet. Like, what are we doing? What do you mean Pokemon's still a 2D game? People made that argument, and it's like, what are we doing, dog? Like, so dumb.
Because that's seemingly what they do best. Desperate for answers, I thought maybe ChatGPT would know, and I asked her, and the answer.
Dude, the ChatGPT things would be crazy because if it's, it better be the dumbest fucking thing ever. Because it's gonna be watch, it's gonna be something like, I'm gonna predict, right? The question's gonna be, why do you think Game Freak is struggling to make good Pokemon games, or I should say, quality Pokemon games? I think that's the proper terminology. If you say good, it's going to assume that it's going to be opinion based, so it won't be able to answer the question, right? So you have to put quality. Why does Game Freak struggle to make quality Pokemon games, or just quality games in like 2025, right? I think that might be the question. And then ChatGPT is going to say something like, it's going to evolve the staff, it's going to evolve the sales numbers, and it's going to evolve Pokemon as a franchise. People just keep buying it. People just won't stop buying it. I think that's what it's going to be.
The answer she gave me was so painfully, abundantly obvious that it was staring me straight in the face the whole time, and I just couldn't see it. This is what ChatGPT said.
Pokemon sells regardless of quality. Even when Pokemon games launch with issues, they still...
Wait, so did you not actually put in ChatGPT? And you just did this as a bit? Because, like, I'm going to keep it a buck. ChatGPT might actually say this right. However, it does not help the, like, obviously... I agree with this guy, like, basically, like, 90-ish%. Maybe 80-ish% for the most part, right? Maybe 85%. I don't know. I might need to rewatch it and figure out what the fuck I actually think, right? But, like, so, saying you did something and not showing it is a bit of a problem, right? Because, like, while everyone can believe, oh, hey, I did put in ChatGPT, us not seeing it would make people think otherwise, right? Because I think this hurts your point. Even if this is real, even if it's true, I think this hurts the point that you're making. I think that's just like, you're kind of saying, trust me, bro, right? Trust me, bro, I did this, even though you're not showing it.
Great record sales. Game Freak may not feel the need to expand drastically if their current model continues to be profitable. Scarlet and Violet sold over
Which I think is
2
true.
million copies despite performance issues, so the financial incentive to increase staff significantly isn't there.
She then goes on to say,
Could Game Freak expand? Yes, they could hire more developers to improve technical quality, but their collaborative approach, fast turnaround, and cost efficiency seem to be priorities over AAA scale productions. Unless Pokemon fans stop buying the games, Game Freak probably won't feel pressured to grow too much.
and she's right.
Yeah, that's not, ChatGPT doesn't talk like that. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't used Chat, which is true. I haven't used ChatGPT in a hot minute. But like, I just don't remember ChatGPT talking like that. Maybe if you put down "talk like a human," it might talk like that. Hold on, let me check if I'm being stupid.
A collaborative approach, fast turnaround, and cost efficiency seem to be priorities over AAA scale productions. Unless Pokemon fans stop buying the games, Game Freak
I feel like they wouldn't say Pokemon fans. I feel like they'd say customers. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking. I might be
probably
being
won't feel
stupid.
pressured to grow too much.
And she's right. I'm gonna buy the new game because I'm a giant hypocrite and I'm not part of the problem. I am the problem. But at least I can accept it. You know, I guess I could have just asked
What? All right, man.
ChatGPT that to begin with and saved days of time writing this script. But I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to end this video and I'm gonna present it the way they wrote it. Plagiarism. Is it?
At the end of the day, Pokemon games may always look a little rough around the edges.
I mean, like, does ChatGPT use ellipses? I don't fucking know.
Hey, as long as they keep selling like rare candies on the black market, Game Freak have no reason to change. So until the day that Pikachu's cheeks has RTX lighting and a wild Bidoof doesn't drop to 5 FPS, we'll just have to accept that the Pokemon franchise is the biggest in the world, running off of nostalgia and a dream. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment.
I mean, like, I don't think he used ChatGPT for that, which, like, by the way, doesn't, like, define any points. But if someone was looking for anything to dispute your points, this would be it, right? Like, you know, like, if like, why are we fumbling at the finish line kind of thing, you know? Like, I don't know, you like, the guy may have actually used ChatGPT and it may have actually spit out stuff like that, but it just doesn't sound like ChatGPT, you know? Obviously, ChatGPT is not reading it. He's reading it with a fucking voice changer on, right? No shit. But like, just the words just don't doesn't sound very ChatGPT to me, you know. But like, yeah, this is mostly right. You know, like, honestly, it's overall, I think it's a good video. I think some points were kind of like, yeah, you know, it's a lose situation. Beautiful sprites, people will complain it's not running 4K frames a nanosecond. But if they do, then Pokemon is trashy and has no soul. Yeah, honestly, that was a big gripe with people about X and Y. It's like, you know, it looks kind of soulless, you know, which I think are fair criticisms. But like, I don't know, man. Like, when stuff's like being developed, you know, and we're seeing progress, I don't see the point in like hating on the progress, right? Like, I think the biggest thing with Game Freak is like, you should be less about, oh hey, these graphics look bad. You should be more about, we want the well, no, like, I mean, because this whole thing was basically for just graphics, right? Because I think the bugs and glitches points were kind of bad, if I'm being honest. Because outside of the day one patch, right, I didn't really see many bugs and glitches. I just didn't. You know, I had my game crash once, and I had some frame drops, right? Which should not happen. I agree, those shouldn't happen. However, when the whole point is like, this is a poor quality game because bugs and glitches, and the bugs and glitches only happen with the 1.0 patch or the 1.0 version, which wasn't patched, you know, which the consumers were not supposed to have. You know, I just don't think that's a reasonable point, you know? Like, the whole, like, I don't know. I think the point of the visual quality was the better point. 100%. I think he's, like, pretty much, like, 90% correct, if not, like, completely correct when it comes to visual quality. Like, after some thinking about it, I think he's correct about the visual quality. But I think the bugs and glitches are kind of like, yeah, it's like a whatever point, you know? Like, I didn't have, like, a 1.0 version. I had a 1.1 version of the game because that's what it launched, or that's what it was supposed to launch as, is 1.1. Or maybe I just got lucky and just didn't see any bugs and glitches. Because, like, all my friends tell me, like, they didn't run to the same thing, except for, like, that one time my buddy was doing something very, very specific. I'm trying to remember how exactly he did a thing, but... But, like, yeah, I like, overall, the video's fine. You know, like, I don't think it's completely... I don't think it's trash or anything. Like, I think you went a little too hard on things that didn't matter as much, you know? And if you just, like, think for a little longer than, like, a couple minutes, then it's like, okay, this kind of makes sense. Like, Legends ZA was being produced before Game Freak admitted, oh, hey, we need to make better games, right? So, of course, it's going to, like, this doesn't excuse it, but it's going to be at that end of that cycle of, like, probably not that great, quote unquote, visually not that great games, right? I'm allowed to say, oh, hey, this game doesn't look as good, while also saying it's better than the previous version, and I'm happy that it's better than the previous game. Like, I think that's I think that's fair, you know. But all in all, I think he's mostly right. How long have we been going? 2 hours? It's not too bad. Dude, my throat, I feel it in my throat. And I think we're going to check out one more thing before we end it, which will be a bit of a shorter one. Fuck. Glitches shouldn't happen, but mine did crash and had bugs. Not as bad as BDSP. My game crashed so bad I lost my save. Damn. And Shiny Mew and all my hidden ability Pokemon I had with these since Gen 5 are gone. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. What are you transferring over to BDSP? Wait. Okay. I'm not going to be a dick. But I would have just kept him at home personally. Right? Unless I wanted it really for BDSP. Because BDSP was a remake that wasn't going to have like crazy online connectivity, you know? Like it wasn't going to be the replacement game. Like Scarlet and Violet is like next generation game. Everything happens in Scarlet and Violet, right? I'm not blaming you or anything. Obviously, it should not happen, but like, I don't know. I didn't transfer any Pokemon to the BDSP. I transferred Pokemon out of BDSP. But I do feel you. That should not happen. That really sucks. Okay, yeah, this thing's still up. All right, let me go back to the cam. Let me do one of these, and then I'm gonna put this. I don't want to open a new tab. Stop it. I want to put this over here, and then yeah, we're going to watch another before you end it because today was going to be a reaction stream because I just need to stream more. I'm being really bad when it comes to streaming. Bam. All right. This one's going to be like 4 minutes, so it's not going to be as bad. Because a buddy of mine sent this to me, and I was like, okay, this looks neat, and I just hadn't gotten around to watching it. And I think I can add a lot of insight to this one, too, because the game, it's titled Smart But Lost. If you grew up with Pokemon, watch this now. And yeah, like, I have to watch it now, because it's telling me to watch it now. But then also, I feel like this is going to go into how people got, like... I'm trying to remember... I don't know what the term is. But whenever people, particularly kids, right, read at, like, say, a higher grade level, right? Like, say you're in, like, 3rd grade, and you read at a 6th grade level, right? And you get congratulated for reading at a 6th grade level. People, when they're praised too much too early, right, immediately get, don't work as hard on their stuff, and they kind of get stunted, you know? That's typically what happens with, like, kids in the schooling systems, is they get praised way too much for reading at like a 6th grade level, right? When they're like 3rd grade or something. And then boom, they just don't get better at reading. You know, which is unfortunate. That happens. I've seen that happens a whole bunch. If you decided to check out the Jerry Can Red video I mentioned, when you have time, that goes over interviews, employees, reviews. It's really insightful on how they deal with poor management. Honestly, I'll probably check that out. Honestly, that sounds really cool. I'm not going to check it out tonight. I just don't have time. Because I do have stuff to do coming up in the next, like, hour or so. And I don't know how long that thing is. But for sure I'm going to check that out. Might do a reaction to it, because that honestly sounds really cool. Then again, it depends. Because, like, it is Game Freak related, so that might be close enough to doing, like, something game related. Because it might be really, really cool, really insightful, or make me really mad. Either way, that could be really funny. It could be a really funny video. Regardless. Actually, I need to change the thumbnail stream now. Bam. Save. And then I'm going to change the title. I'm going to title it, Are You a Lazy Pokemon Player? There we go. That's not how you spell Pokemon, dude. I just butchered that completely. But yeah, with how much shit Game Freak got for Scarlet and Violet, It's gonna be great whenever like with their turnaround. Honestly, like Legends of ZA will probably be a little rough. Then Gen 10 will be pretty good, and then Gen 11 will probably be contended for Game of the Year. That's my prediction. Like honestly, that's my genuine prediction. But we're gonna hop into the next thing. Smart but lost. If you grew up with Pokemon, watch this now. And so we're gonna watch it now because they're demanding that I watch it now. And I think I can have like a lot of insight into this because there are times where it's like, okay, I feel kind of lost, you know, and I play a lot of Pokemon. But like I think I'm getting my shit together.
Yo,
Yo.
you grew up playing Pokemon.
Let's turn you up a
and
smidgen.
now
You're a
your
little quiet.
life feels like just running in circles through tall grass. This is for you. You're ambitious as hell, dreaming of a Charizard level life. But every
But-
time you think about starting, it's like, let me just hatch one more shiny egg.
Stop procrastinating. Like most people like from like a YouTube perspective, where people make YouTube videos, right? Most people struggle making YouTube videos because they're watching too much YouTube, right? Usually it's like if you're watching too much YouTube, or no, if you have time to watch a bunch of YouTube, you're not making enough YouTube, basically. Need to watch it now. No, please. Thank you. That's rude. Yeah, no, please, no, thank you. No, please, no, thank you. They're demanding it right now. But yeah, so for something I learned is if you watch too much YouTube, you don't have time to make YouTube. Therefore, watch less YouTube, which you should watch YouTube as a YouTuber, right? Because no shit, right? We're watching YouTube video right now, but we also have to be practical in that if you don't have time to produce, you won't produce. And so whenever it comes to life in general, if you take too much time doing one thing, you won't have time for another thing. You know, it's basic like what's the term? Opportunity cost. It's generally just opportunity cost. And so the opportunity to get that shiny Pokemon bounced out whatever you were going to do something else with your time, right? Therefore, in your mind, this shiny is more valuable than something else. It's just a matter of that. That's great advice. Yeah. I mean, also that's just like life in general from like what I figured out. I did the YouTube thing specifically because that's like I'm just been doing a lot of YouTube stuff. But like, and this is just like with everything. If you do nothing with your time, obviously nothing happens, right? If you do something with your time, clearly something happens. No shit, that's just how life works. But you watching the stream right now bounced off like, I don't know, you like going mowing your lawn or something, right? You know, even though with like streams you can like multitask, you know? And that's how you should do most like if you're trying to min-max your time, right? Then obviously there's nothing wrong with taking breaks and watching a YouTube video while you eat or something, right? But whenever it comes to like say a live stream, you can like game at the same time, you know, chill yourself out. You can fucking like write your book report, you know? You can multitask while doing like watching YouTube videos, watching YouTube streams, right? But if you're just sitting down and only watching YouTube, you probably have extra time to do something else. But then again, you could probably just be chilling out. And having chill out time is very, very good. But some people have to work during the chill out time. And that's what I'm trying to do as much as possible. You know, because like I enjoy like editing while like I'm doing YouTube stuff or while I'm watching YouTube and everything. And like listening to podcasts and everything, trying to get better at doing stuff or like learning a new skill whenever it comes to like editing or Photoshop or like just like anything in general. Fancy game mechanics, you know, shit like that. Honestly, I just kind of rambled for a little bit for no reason, but we're getting back to it.
And then, boom,
Boom.
another day's gone.
Skill
But
issue.
listen, it's not just you, it's your brain. Games like Pokemon rewired it in ways you never even realized.
It's probably gonna be something like instant gratification, where it's like, okay, you picked your starter, right? Because you're the main character. Then you run around, you beat stuff up, you get XP pretty quickly, and you get your badge relatively quickly. Therefore, instant gratification because it's like you got the cool stuff really, really fast, right? I think that's more or less what it's going to be.
By the end of this, you'll finally understand why your brain's been trolling you, and more importantly, how to outplay it.
Hell yeah.
Pokemon taught us to chase big goals in the most backwards way possible. Think about it. You'd grind for hours, fighting level 3 Pidgeys, resetting for shinies, or searching for some obscure TM in Victory Road. And for what? A quick flashy moment where your Pokemon evolves, or maybe a badge. If you're really lucky, a legendary with garbage stats.
That's a Charizard. That's not a legendary Pokemon.
But in the real world, no professor's handing you a Pokedex like go become the very best.
I might need to censor this in post. We'll find out.
No catchy theme song. Just you staring at your to-do list, trying not to spiral. That's why so many of us are stuck. We've got huge
I mean, it's like you gotta do your dishes. You know, you're gonna like cooking the food and eating the food way more than doing the dishes, but you still gotta wash your dishes.
dreams, but we're
Like-
sitting around waiting for a rare candy moment that's never gonna come. The
Yeah, that's actually I've seen this a lot with like some people I used to go to school with. Is that like people were just kind of going with the motions, right? Which there are times where it's like, yeah, that makes fucking sense. You know, it's like okay, sometimes you just gotta go with the flow. But that's like maybe like 5% of the time, if that. Like you gotta be actionable. You know, if you're going to like be successful or do anything cool or hell, just like exist, right? You gotta be at least mildly actionable. You know, if you go with the flow way too much, you just kind of like waste away and do nothing. You know, that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense.
problem isn't even starting. Anyone can start.
Yeah.
Like in Pokemon, you pick your starter, name your right.
You pick your starter. Dude, he seems really passionate about it, or I think this is like intentional. He does keep puffing to the mic.
Rival something dumb like Poop Face.
Hell yeah.
And catch your first Rattata. Easy. The real issue, momentum. Pokemon made progress feel automatic. Every step forward gave
I mean, like, progress is kind of automatic to an extent, right? It's not as instant as a video game, right? Because, like, comparing video games to real life is kind of dumb, right? But, like, I'm going to put it into perspective of YouTube, right? Because I think that's the most relevant that I can talk about, right? Because people are watching the YouTube stream, people are watching YouTube video, all this stuff, right? But progress is automatic in that you are learning things. Maybe the number doesn't go up, right? Like my first YouTube video, I think did okay for like the first YouTube video, like on like a channel, right? I think it did pretty okay. But like I learned like as I progressed from that first video is the stepping stone, and then I learned editing, and I learned thumbnail making, and I learned title ideation, and I learned all this stuff, right? Like progress is automatic in that you just have to make it automatic, if that makes sense, right? Like if you just do something and expect to get better, that's kind of just like you're kind of just being dumb, you know? Like, which sounds kind of like victim blaming because the whole point of this video is like, oh hey, Pokemon kind of messed you up in that, like, okay, like it just instant gratification, right? I think that's mostly the whole thing is like mostly instant gratification, which I think is kind of true. However, all games do that. All games give you some sort of instant gratification. That's just definitive, right? But like, I'm trying to put this in a way that makes sense because I think if I'm explaining things kind of blah. But like, just because a number doesn't go up does not mean you yourself aren't getting better at something, right? Like you can see progress. Like my Pikmin video, right, where I did like ranking Pikmin about how good they taste, right? I think is definitively better than my previous highest huge video on the channel. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I don't remember if it was the racist Pokemon Tutorials, which is funny, or if it's like the hottest Pokemon Tutorials, which is also pretty funny. Well, one of those did better than the other one, right? But regardless, right? The Pikmin video is significantly better than that previous one, right? Because I made progress in like thumbnail ideation, where it's like, okay, I have an idea for the thumbnail. The video idea I think is just better. It hits a niche harder, right? Because Pikmin is a smaller niche, but also has like very like solid audience, right? People just like grab onto that shit. And I think the editing was just much better. It was cleaner. The repetitive actions is what levels up skills. Your numbers may not go up right away, but you'll learn from your failures and doing it repeatedly. That's true for the most part. But something I learned from high school, right? Because I played the trombone in high school, right? And so something that people would say, or something the band director would say, is that practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. So it's equally important to practice as it is to practice the importance stuff, right? If that makes sense. Like, if you practice wrong, then you're just going to get worse. You have to practice correctly. You have to do shit correctly. You have to do your repetition properly, right? You have to stretch before you lift some weights type of shit, right? All right, back to the video.
gave you something, a level up, a new move, an
Hell yeah.
NPC saying, wow, you're strong. But
What?
real life, it's like wandering through Route 1, fighting invisible zigzagoons, while literally no one cares. No claps, no fanfare. And that's when
I mean, that's all, again, that's also very, very true. However, get you some friends. Get you some friends and that's basically all you need. Get you some friends that want to grow with you, and then you'll start skyrocketing so much more because they'll teach you a ton of shit. You'll teach them a ton of shit. You'll help each other out. You'll criticize each other. You'll bolster each other up. Just get friends. Like a lot of the shit is just like you just get better by getting friends.
When the fear creeps in, not fear of failing, but fear that maybe you're not even the person you think you are.
I think that's fair, yeah.
Say it. Life's grind doesn't come with a strategy guide.
That is true. That's true. That's why you listen to your fucking parents.
You start chasing your big goals, and suddenly it's hard. No
Yeah.
guaranteed badges, no shinies. And
I mean, in the perspective of YouTube, right? Because people watch YouTube, you gotta make a perspective of YouTube, right? In the perspective of YouTube, you could just say each like subscriber milestone in your brain is the badge, right? Like for me, getting like first 10 was crazy. Then the first like 25, the first 50, 100, 500, 1,000 were crazy to me. I was freaking out, right? Then my channel hit 1 million views. I'm like, damn, this is crazy, right? Like each individual milestone can just be your badge, right? In the perspective of YouTube, right? You just need a goal to go towards, right? You can have like the big thing, right? In the context of Pokemon being, I want to be the champion. But in order to be a champion, I have to beat Brock, In order to hit 1 million subs on YouTube, I got to get 10. That's just how it works, right? Like you can gamify it in your favor, right? While still doing shit productively and being smart with your time and doing things like properly and also still having a social life and all this stuff.
And honestly, most people don't even notice what you're doing. It makes
That's true.
you wonder, am I even good enough? Why does this feel like one giant mint coronet with no escape rope? You're not stuck. You've got a choice. And yeah, the grind hurts.
Yeah. If you give up, then clearly it wasn't meant to be. That's just how it goes. If you're willing to give up super, super quickly, and you're not even like anywhere close to where you're trying to be, then it just wasn't meant to be. That's fine. Like there are people who I used to talk to every single day, right? About YouTube stuff, about thumbnails, about editing, and they quit. And it's unfortunate, right? It is very unfortunate, but it is better for them because they end up spending their time doing something that either they actually want to do or doing something that will just make their life better. And that's great. Like that is definitively for the better. I'm happy for their progress, right? For their thing. But I do like miss talking to them, obviously, right? But if you're giving up before you're even anywhere close to the starting line, then yeah, you're not making it. Like the starting line of YouTube, like stretching before the race is releasing your first video, right? In the perspective of YouTube, you have to keep talking about YouTube, right? Like releasing video number 1 is stretching, right? But then the starting line is like getting to like video number like 10, depending upon how you edit, maybe 50, maybe 100. It just depends, right? Because the only time where you can be like definitive, like, okay, I actually think I want to do this is if you've been either A, doing it for a long time, or B, even just making a ton of content, right? That's when you're at the starting line, And most people just can't make it to the starting line whenever it comes to YouTube. Whenever it comes to most stuff, like college, for instance, like if you drop out year 1, you were not at the fucking starting line. You just weren't. I'm a college grad, right? And college is like not the easiest thing ever, right? I didn't have that much trouble because I actually did classes and stuff I actually wanted to do, But like there are people dropping out because they couldn't get past English 101, right? And while English 101 can be difficult for some people, right? Definitively, that's true. It can be hard for some people. And some people just can't mesh into the college experience, right? But if you can't bring yourself to get past year 1, then how on earth are you going to get into year 4? Right? That's just definitive, right? Like you're at the starting line, or you're about to be at the starting line, and you just quit. Like your tire popped, and you don't have it, and you just don't bother changing the tire. It's one of those things. Like the grind, and with this guy saying the grind hurts, which is true. The grind fucking sucks sometimes, but like iron sharpens iron. And how are you supposed to get muscles if you're never going to like eat a piece of protein and go lift a weight?
It's frustrating, repetitive, and there's no promise of a big reward. But staying stuck, that
no promises.
So much more. And trust me, if you think the grind now is hard, wait until regret.
Also, I heard that cut.
Trust big reward.
I heard that cut.
Staying stuck, that hurts so much more. And trust me, if you think the grind.
Yeah, that either he cut there, right? and he just like cut the waveforms too close, or he just like went, or he just talked really quickly. Either one's possible. It's not. I'm not griping on this guy. I thought it was funny.
Now is hard.
And there was that cut there, right? That was way more
That hurts
aggressive.
so much more. And trust me, if you think the grind now is
Like yeah, like he just forgot to say the word now, so he just like cut it in. It's just, like that's not me shitting on him. I just thought that was funny.
hard, wait until regret sends you the bill. So how do you break free?
There's a great song. Actually, hold on. Let me look it up real quick. I'm not gonna play it because it's copywritten. Hold on. I'm looking it up. Could Have Been Me by the Struts. That is a great fucking song, right? Not because it's particularly good. I think it's a very solid song, right? Don't get me wrong. Like it's a very solid like 7.5 out of 10 as far as music is concerned, right? Like I don't think it should win any rewards, right? But the entire point of the song is like, okay, like I don't want to live in regret, and I don't want to be looking like at people, right? Like looking at the people like above me, being like, that could have been me, right? Because there's nothing that will ever kill you or destroy you way worse than like, damn, that could have been me, right? But at least you have the closure if you try. That's like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. Or you can definitively say this isn't for me. That's better. It's honestly, I find way more respect for people. And I think more people have this thing too, right? Even though there's like this whole like anti-loser culture, which by the way, don't be a loser, but I find it way easier to respect someone who tried their best to do something, even if they failed and said, okay, this isn't for me, right? And I think more people can agree with that, right? Because like, if you're trying really, really hard and it just isn't working, and you decide to say, okay, this isn't working out, I can respect that. Like the friends I was talking about earlier who I don't really talk to as much anymore because they just don't do YouTube anymore because they gave up at some point, right? Because it just wasn't working out for them. Like I still respect them because like they at least tried. There's so many people who just never try, or their quote unquote try is they're going to post a TikTok that gets 10 views and they get upset and discouraged. It's like you didn't try. You didn't fucking try. You know, like, because like I think if you fail, you won't regret failing, right? You will regret not failing. You know, because at least if you fail, it's like, oh hey, I at least have closure. You know, it's like asking a girl out. You know, it's like, okay, I know for sure she doesn't like me now, but I don't have any regrets, I guess. You know, I guess that's the way to put it. Don't forget self-sabotage. So many people I've met that try but don't feel they deserve it, and then mess it up for themselves. That's true. There's a lot of self-sabotage, but again, that's like a whole other thing. But there are people who are like that, 100%. Or people who just like don't understand what the fuck they're doing, right? Like there will be people from the perspective of YouTube, right, who will get like let's say like 100,000 view video, right? Which is very good. That's very, very good. They'll get 100,000 view video. And then they'll just like try to make literally anything else but that video again. And they just get like 10 views. I'm not even fucking joking. It'll be that extreme of a difference. Like if I make 100,000 views, right, off a Pikmin video, and I decide to make fucking a travel vlog, no shit, the travel vlog's not gonna get any fucking views. People want me for the fucking 100K view Pikmin video. Like no shit. like what are we doing, dog? Like what are we doing? Like people really think that they themselves are the product, right? When that's not true. You know? Like there are examples of like people who can do like whatever, right? And still do okay. But that's like 1%. No. I guess like 5% of an already unbelievably small amount of people being like professionals in their field, you know? Like most people have to still niche down. And that goes for like every field. That's not just like YouTube stuff. That's also just like science stuff. You know, there are people who can be crazy educated and everything, right? But like, why would I listen to Bill Nye the Science Guy when I can listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson? You know?
Easy. You stop looking for shortcuts and lean into the grind, the exact grind you've been avoiding. Because, let's be real, the real rare candy in life, it's the boring, hard stuff you don't want to do.
As long as that's true.
Every mistake.
Discipline? because most people just like discipline, right? As I just clapped really hard, but most people just like discipline, right? Because Mike Tyson once said, "Discipline is doing something that doing something that you hate like you love it, right? Like you gotta wash your fucking dishes. That like you smell bad, you gotta fucking shower. You know, like you gotta figure it out. You know, you just have to do the shit. You know, you have to get the extra levels, right? But it's much. Actually, no, that doesn't make sense. You got to get the levels through grinding, you know, and you just got to do it. You just have like obviously, if you want to do something, you have to fucking do it. Like, that's obvious.
That's EXP. Every failure, a chance to learn a new move.
True.
And unlike Pokemon, there's no game over if you mess up. That frustration you feel when you're not where you want to be yet. That's your inner trainer screaming, make this worth something. Patience, persistence, and endless grind in Pokemon drilled into us. Yeah, that's the secret to hitting your goals. So stop waiting for RNG to bless you with a Master Ball moment and start grinding. You already know what you need to do. Time to stop daydreaming and start training like you're heading to the Elite Four. The power you've been searching for. It's in the work you've been avoiding. So shut up, grab your metaphorical Pokegear and get moving, because no one's gonna catch your dreams for you.
That is 100% true. Honestly, that's a very good video. Like you can, like my only quote unquote gripe is that you can basically just like throw like whatever game on top of that, right? But I think Pokemon's really, really smart because like the youngest among us and the oldest among us fucking love Pokemon. You know? So like, honestly, I think this is a great video. Straight up. Like I can't really refute anything about it. This is a good video. Like my my one quote unquote criticism is like, you know, you're talking like into the mic sometimes with being like kind of boosting, like you're going pop, 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 right? So like I think the best thing that you can do, because your voice is like a shotgun, right? You know, as someone who's an audio engineer, right? Your voice is a shotgun. So I could talk like this and still get all the enunciation, pronunciation, articulation, and everything going for it, right? Without having to look like be directly at the mic. I can still be off to the side. You know, there are some mics you have to talk directly into, right? But there's others you just don't have to, for simplicity's sake, right? Like do whatever makes the most sense. If you don't have like a windscreen or pop filter, obviously get one of those. And then you'll be good. That's about it. That's all I can say. This was a great video, honestly. But yeah, there's not really much else I gotta go over. Like I think that's about it. It was like, wait, hold on. What time is it? It's about 7. Damn! It's almost 7 o'clock. Damn! Damn, it's almost 7 o'clock. But yeah, like that was great, you know? You should subscribe if you haven't subscribed. You know, people watching stream. You know, because having more subs makes you feel good. I like having subs. But yeah, that's about it. I don't know when these will become videos, but at some point, you know. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'm gonna have to end it. You can actually peep the Discord. So if you want to join the Discord, actually go and pop into that. You know, like it's in the description, or it should be in the description, right? Yeah, Discord's in the description. So yeah, go ahead and peep the Discord. Do that down there, you know. And the next video is coming out soon. I just been having a very busy work week. That's it. I'm dipping. Hey, thanks you guys for watching. Thank you guys for watching. Goodbye. Goodbye. We're ending here. Goodbye. 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 Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Goodbye. Goodbye. You're beautiful. Goodbye. Goodbye. Why is OBS not